Hello, everyone. Glad to be here with you guys today for this wonderful special edition of Do Your Own Research with Max, but in reality, it's Do Your Own Research with special guest, the one and only Michael Middleton. And Michael, it's a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Max, I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You're very welcome. Before we get into the comments, we have an announcement to make. So, for one, we really do appreciate the content, especially since we have a special guest. It's the first special guest we had on this platform, obviously not the old channel, but this platform. So, that is super cool that you're the first one, Michael. But what I also want to state is this. Before we do this interview with Michael, instead of me looking directly into the camera to engage, I found in the past when I had other guests on that I'm able to follow a lot easier if I can just simply do this. Pay attention to the person talking to me by looking at his screen, and the same goes for him. So if it looks like we're not looking into the camera and not engaging with you guys, we definitely are. We'd rather pay attention to what we have to say than make it look like, hey, camera time. So we're just putting that disclaimer out there. Also, I'll announce this real quick before we introduce Michael and his background. I did watch another recorded video from our fellow, brother Gavin, and you announced that you like the dates announced. So today's date is Thursday, February 1st, and we're starting just shortly after 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern. So with that said, let's kick it into the comments just for a bit, see what you guys have, and then after that, we'll definitely do a proper introduction of our special guest, Michael Middleton. All right. So with that said, let's start off with the first comment of the day. Just welcome a few guys from the community. You know how it goes. Tim Shea, who says, hey, glad to have Mayor Crypto Commissioner Tim Shea in the house, representing the 589th District of the XRP Army. We got Brittany also here. And I'm just going to go rapid fire into a lot of these. I did see there's a super chat as well. So let's also welcome Boomer F and Sooner. Boomer, glad to have you. Gerald is in the house. Crypto Homes 777, thank you for being here. Boomer saying hello to Michael Middleton. And we got Richie Rich in the house. We also have River says, hey, Max. Hey, Michael. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And let me just highlight something real quick. All right. Let's see here. We have a super chat from Henry Brown. Let's read that real quick. And he says, Royal Rumble tonight. World Wrestling Entertainment Thursday Night SmackDown. Well, all right. Yeah. Let's go. Thank you so much.
There's a couple nice things. I used to watch the WWE, but Rumble, that's a nice platform. I love Rumble.
Yeah, we got to get on Rumble at some point. I know a lot of people like because a little bit more of that free speech, which is always a good thing.
Always good.
But yeah. Yep. Henry Brown, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Let's also welcome Corey B-Bay, aka JASMY Not the Scam. And then we also have, who else is up in here? We have Jim Miller in the house. Welcome back. Love your dog. And we also got Karen McCormick. Really glad to have you back, Karen. And other than that, I think we're going to get right into it. Oh, John Francis just showed up. He says, hey, Mr. Milton. Hey, Max, I should have stayed a BTC Maxi. LOL would have been better off. Oh, difference of opinion. Okay.
Let's say Bitcoin Maxi, right?
Right. So how about this? We are done welcoming you guys for now. And Michael, go ahead and take it away. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess the thing I should say is, I think I found Bitcoin, if I recall correctly, it was probably sometime in 2013. At that point in time, I had been in my business for a while, which I'm a property tax consultant, and I had done very well. And because I used to sell computers and software systems, I had integrated that into my business. So I was early on with not only a website for my company, but I was surfing the web a lot. And I came across, and I think it was YouTube at the time, where there was a gentleman who was, I think he was in Russia, and he said he was going to transfer over, if I remember right, about $100,000 from the Russia to United States. And he said he was going to do it cryptographically or through the internet without the use of any banks or middleman, and he had my attention. And then that was the first demonstration I had of Bitcoin at that time. And I called my brother in, who was my partner at the time, and I said, whatever this is, it's going to change the world. And so I started researching it because I don't really jump into anything right away. I always like to look into it first. And I had an IT guy who's worked for me for years. And we actually tried to download the entire blockchain at the time. And I was thinking of mining and doing different things to get into Bitcoin. Ultimately, I didn't do any of that. And I just watched the price and paid attention to it. So I think when I first saw it, if I remember right, it was in the single digits, and I think I even saw some of the first crashes from $32, whatever, down to, I think it went down to $2. So the first time I actually decided to get into Bitcoin was through an exchange that was not in the United States, because there weren't any, and it was called Bitstamp. And I'm not sure, but I think it was in Holland. And because, I'm very much following laws and everything, they had this KYC, know your customer laws back then. And so I followed all that. And so I acquired my first Bitcoin from sometime in 14 through 2015. And at that point in time, I think my average cost was around $370 per Bitcoin. And then I sat on it for a number of years. Yeah. So I was very early, and I also sat on it for a couple years. Just went to my work, and just kind of paid attention to it. Not much was going on in that time, but things started to heat up a few years later, and Bitcoin started going up, and then there was this whole thing with Ethereum, and then in late 2016, early 2017. I became very active with Ethereum. The way I do things is it's kind of like I remember Groucho Marx back in the 20s saying that when it was stock picking time, you just throw a dart at the board and almost anything you hit was going to go up. And I kind of felt that way about Bitcoin and the cryptos. I didn't know which one was going to be the right one, although I felt Bitcoin, had first user move and advantage. I just intuitively felt that with the web now in play, and with my background in software, and software was kind of consuming the world, I had a feeling that Bitcoin was going to be the financial instrument or money for the world. And I had later come to find out that Bitcoin is probably going to be much more than just money. It's like the first application. So in addition to Bitcoin in 2017, I also made some acquisitions with Ripple, with Stellar, with Dogecoin. Very early on, I think my Stellar acquisition was at 0.008, so very early as far as what I paid for. And one of the very first things I did, there's a crypto called Veritasium, and the gentleman's name is Reggie Middleton. And he's no relation to me, even though we have the same last names. Very intelligent. And I believe he has now 3 patents. I think he has 2 in Japan and 1 in the United States for DeFi technology. Veritasium was going to be like a truth platform. And so that was one of my first purchases. And I bought it through Reggie directly. But it wasn't really a crypto purchase. It was a purchase of software. And later on, when Reggie was being charged by the SEC, I actually testified with the SEC, pretty much actually on behalf of Reggie Middleton, because I didn't think he had done anything wrong. And fast forward to today, and recently his patents were, I guess, challenged by Coinbase. And he got a recent ruling from the patent office that his patents are going to stand. So I don't know where Veritasium is going to go, but I believe it's certainly one of the things that is worth looking at as to where we can go My personal belief is that BSV is going to be probably the last man standing, simply because when the internet first started, there was internets and intranets. And intranets, which, you know, were like, let's say IBM, they were all doing their own thing, but that made no sense to me, because if you want to connect to everyone, you want one platform. You don't want a bunch of platforms. So the intranets eventually gave way to the internet, right? So that's, and of course, because I sold first mini and mainframe softwares to a lot of different industries, retail, manufacturing, and a few others. I realized at that point in time that protocol mattered. And so if you understand that protocol and you understand that kind of the way the computers work, when Bitcoin came around and there was all this talk about protocol, to me, the original protocol, the way it was designed by whoever the creator of Bitcoin was, mattered, the white paper. And there's a lot of discussion about that today. So fast forward to today, I did not find out about Craig Wright until long after the block size debate took place. And for those of you who don't know, and I think you know, the block size debate there was a very heavy debate as to how Bitcoin could scale. And there was a 1 megabyte block size limit imposed at the time, which Satoshi, I guess, allowed, but I don't think he was in favor of it. I think there were things where he said it should be allowed to increase, and then it wasn't. And if you just go with, if you're at all a conspiracy theorist, which I kind of am in certain ways, a lot of times the name will tell you what's going on. For example, the Simpsons are known to have a lot of different projections and forecasts that come true. And if you just look at the company called Blockstream, like, why would you name it Blockstream unless it was trying to block the stream or the flow of information by keeping the block size artificially low with 1 megabytes or 1 megabyte? And of course, that made no sense to me. So I was intuitively on the side of big blockers. I will say, when SegWit was first introduced, I was following a number of people, and I'll just give a couple names that I did follow. There was a gentleman, well, Cliff High, who was a very big one, but there was a gentleman by the name of Tone Base, who's very much doing a lot of technical analysis, and he believed in segregated witness, and I watched him a lot. I also, Trace Mayer was one who was an early one who advocated for Bitcoin and said, no matter what splits there are, you should be in all of them, which I agreed with that. Of course, I also followed Roger Ver, who is known as Bitcoin Jesus, and who is now a proponent of Bitcoin Cash. And I believe that he and Craig Wright were on the same team when BTC split to BCH. But then I think Roger went away from the whole idea of unlimited block sizes and let the miners determine it. And so BCH strayed from that, because I don't think they go above, I think it's 8 or 32 megabytes, which doesn't make sense to me, because I believe that BSV is now talking terabytes or 1 million transactions a second. Now that makes sense, because that is utility that allows everyone in the world to utilize a communication system. Because for me, money, whatever it is, whether it's fiat or anything, is nothing more than a form of communication from one person to another. And it's really a transfer of value, right? It's how am I going to transfer, instead of barter, how am I going to transfer value to you and you to me? And so that's, I guess that kind of gives an overview. I also followed Adrian Antonopoulos very early on, and he actually had a lot of good information. Later on, I found, he stayed with the BTC concept of, limiting the block sizes, which again, I didn't agree with. And there's a few other gentlemen I followed, quite a few actually. There's a gentleman by the name of Mike Maloney, who talked about gold and silver, and he also got into the cryptos. And he has a series called The Hidden Secrets of Money, which is available on YouTube. It's got a 12-part series that I know of that gives a very good explanation about the history of money going way back. And he talks about the importance of gold and silver as well as cryptos. There's another gentleman by the name of Mark Passio, and I've watched a lot of stuff that he did, and his thing is called What on Earth is Happening. And apparently he was involved in a lot of the, let's say, the cult type thing, the hidden knowledge, the occult, which he got out of, and then his channel is talking more a lot about, you know, how he got out of that, being in the occult. He's a little bit, let's say, aggressive for me, negative. I like to be positive, so I don't like to focus on that. You know, where your mind goes, your energy flows, is the way I look at it. And so if you're going to focus on negativity, then that's what you're going to get back. And if you focus in a positive area, then that's what you're going to get back. I like to say, for me, I always tell everyone, say, well, you know, my personality is like my blood type, and my blood type is B positive. So it runs through my veins.
Be positive. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Earlier, you know, we were talking about this before the show, okay? And it's nothing against people personally. It's just like you mentioned earlier. It's you know, some people, they think they know a certain thing, and then that could be further from the truth. I'm going to share something back to what you were talking about in regards to block sizes. And so
Okay.
there was a recent comment, and of course I should really share this with you, but you know, I thought it'd be good for you to just explain briefly to our audience, because there's a lot of people here that are new to obviously BSV and so on. You know, you just get the narrative of BTC, but here it basically is. We're going to share this. This is a comment that came in from a video a few days ago. And basically, it's this right here from this person. And I have nothing against this person. I mean, you know, we welcome different, you know, points of view. I don't know if I could just pull that up again. I zoomed in too much. All right, but here it is. Basically, it's from this guy. He goes by the name of Mr. Mookie Pookie. And
Okay.
yeah, let's go ahead and
I like it.
yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit more. You can read that, and we'll go over that.
Okay. How does a 4 gigabyte block size every 10 minutes make scalability any better? Well, I'll start with that. The bigger the block size, the more transactions that can be put in it. And as far as the transactions go, and Bitcoin was created with two ways of being paid. One is the block size reward, and then the other is the transactions. And if you read the white paper and you really understand Bitcoin, the block size reward is nothing more than an initial subsidy to get Bitcoin off the ground. Okay, so just like any new, and I know Korea subsidized Samsung and a few others, and then once the subsidy goes away over time, then you want the transactions or whatever the business model is to take over. And that's kind of where we're heading now, because the subsidy was halved every 4 years, and we have the big halving event. And so the reliance on the subsidy is less and less. But for BTC, the reliance is on the subsidy more and more. And to be quite frank, if you want to find out why is BTC still, where does the money come? Where does the funds come for BTC to continue to go up? Who's buying it? And then if you just look at Tether, which is a stable coin, and you see the amount of Tether that's being printed that's going into BTC, you can understand where it might be coming from. And you know, I'm going to do a shout out for Satoshi, who is another gentleman in the space who has done a very good job, and he's very direct. He's far more direct than I am with his opinions about, you know, what's causing BTC to continue to go up. So, but over time, that subsidy is going to continue to go away until the 21 million Bitcoins are completely all issued, and then it will have to be the transactions. So if the transaction volume is huge, then the miners will get paid mostly from the transactions. The business will be established just like Samsung is today. And if the whole world is communicating through the internet, and if the internet rides on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, which is BSV, but I think BSV will eventually be left in the dust, and it will be just called Bitcoin because it was started off as Bitcoin. There were no ticker symbols when it first was created. It was called Bitcoin. And it wasn't until forks occurred and splits and things like that happened that ticker symbols mattered. I think it was Mt. Gox that originally created the first, or the BTC ticker symbol was first done in Mt. Gox. And of course, I believe Mt. Gox I think they just distributed finally after how many years, the coins that were lost to all the people who put their money into Mt. Gox but didn't take their coins off of the exchange. So for me, I've always, when I bought on exchanges, and I've been in a number of them in addition to Bitstamp, I also was in Kraken, Gemini, and several others, KuCoin and Binance and several others. And I think most of those other ones now are no longer available to the United States citizens. I think now there's mostly, just the older ones, and then there's some new ones, but there's just not a lot of exchanges. I think we're coming to the end of what Craig Wright would call the bucket shop type stuff. I think that in the not too distant future, as the trial unfolds here, we're going to see a lot of that stuff go away.
Yeah. And
So
speaking of which, go ahead.
if you want to continue on with that, I'd be happy to. I can't see it. It's a little too small. Let's read on with his next question.
Oh, that's it. That was his only one that he posted, basically.
Okay. Oh yeah, I just thought,
yeah, I just thought it was a legitimate question, and some people from the other side,
Absolutely.
obviously, look at it, and it's not like I always tell our community here, it's like you don't want to be the type of person that just speaks loud and says, "Hey, it's this way because I said so." I always tell people, like, we had a guy the other night, and he was talking about a different particular coin. He was like, it's a scam. And it says, I always tell people, like, look, I always present research, right? Hence why it's called DYOR. Do you have any solid research to support your narrative? And it usually is crickets. I hate to say it, like nobody responds back with it. But I thought that was a fair question. And there's obviously people, even here right now as we speak, who probably are not BSV fanatics and so on, and that's okay. But what I was going to state is, I thought that was a fair question, and especially for people that are new to the whole thing of BSV. And let's face it, there's a lot of people that need to learn about it, because if we did have that mainstream narrative that BTC has, but for BSV, I don't even know if we'd be here right now. I don't even know if we'd be talking about all this stuff right now. Maybe, but I think
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I do think there's no such thing as a bad question as long as it's made in good faith. And so I always try to answer those questions. I also want to step out. I've been watching a lot of the things you've done recently, and your coverage of Stellar and Ripple and where that's going. The technical analysis you give, it's really helped me a lot, because I haven't been able to follow a lot of this stuff. And so I just want to give you a shout out for that, because your coverage of that and how these coins are going to possibly be used outside of BSV, because you never know which one's going to make it. But who is it that's with Stellar? I just saw it the other day. Which one is it?
MoneyGram?
Or MoneyGram? Yes, MoneyGram. Yeah, that's fascinating.
You never know. It might be Instagram too, because we did. Yeah, actually, here's a funny thing, right? Yesterday's show, we were pointing out the whole thing of Meta, formerly known as Facebook, are no longer listed on the list of COPA members. All right.
That was a huge one right there. That looks like the coalition that has come together is now, I still think it's going to go forward. And I agree with Gavin that the decision may still come against Craig initially, but I've been involved in a lot of court battles myself with my line of work, because I'm in real estate and we do a lot of property tax battles. And just because you lose at the district court level, the appellate court level is oftentimes will overturn these decisions, especially if they're made by in bad faith or by let's say a judge or someone who doesn't have enough knowledge or has a bias. The appellate courts are often much better, and I think Craig Wright has actually lost some decisions and then had them overturned in the appellate court. It's very interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. What we're going to do right now is just, see if we have any specific questions or comments, because, we do try to respect our community that's here, and see if you guys have anything. So what I'm going to do is, just to kind of help with the flow, instead of me manually clicking on all the ones like you guys are used to, I'm going to go to the other screen real quick and go from there. Right. So let's see what we have. All right. Let's see here. See if you guys got anything specific for Michael. John Francis. Okay, I did see that comment. Just forfeits in the house. Let's see here. We have a 99-cent super chat from the one and only Elon Muff, Mike Cornwell. Let's at least highlight that. Yes, you have not experienced a live show until somebody with the name of Elon Muff has invaded your program. All right. Thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker
Nice.
from Mike Cornwell. He says 100. And then on top of that, let's just see what's going on the other screen. Let's go further down. If you guys got anything specific, that'd be great. Let's welcome SangStar One Video Presentations. Truth Researcher says real Bitcoin is, Satoshi or SV. See what you guys got anything specific. John Francis, remember Juniper Networks and Sun Microsystem back in the day? Do you remember some of that, Michael?
Sun Microsystems, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so just back in the day, in the late 80s, I worked for MAI Basic 4, and they were like a competitor of DEC. And I'll give you like a little bit of history. So I sold like a 4 megabyte memory board at the time for $17,600. And hardware was the thing that drove the sales back then, not so much software. And so I made most of my money off hardware sales. And then I had to we had software developers that the software developers usually came from, they had developed their own software program for their own company. Like there was one that I sold was at a wholesale electrical distributor, and they had to design their own software program, and it was so good that they started selling that program in the 80s to other wholesale distributors, and it became very successful. So actually, one of my first sales here in San Diego was to a large electrical distributor, and it was mostly because the gentleman who created the software came and could talk turkey with the guy who was selling. And my job was just to facilitate the two of them together. And I also interviewed everyone in the firm to find out how their manual systems worked, because if you try to automate a manual system and you don't have good manual systems in place, you just gunk up the works. So I was finding out exactly what it was each person did. So that was my job, to facilitate how it would work, while the software gentleman sold the software, talking, industry specifics with the owner of the business. And it was like a 4-month process. And the buyer was actually a little frustrated with me because I wouldn't give him a quote until I had cost justified the system. And so he says, how long are you going to make me wait? Well, I knew it was going to be an expensive purchase, the software as well as the hardware. And if you just throw a quote at somebody and they don't see the value, you're not going to get a sale. So by the time I brought him the quote, he gulped really hard. I'll never forget. He looked at it and he had a pen in his hand, and he double swallowed, and then he just put his head down and just looked at the number he was about to write a check for in order to buy the system. But in the end, he did, and it also worked out very well for him because it was a well thought out solution to automating the way they did their wholesale distribution sales.
Interesting. You got a lot of history, and that's a good thing. We appreciate you obviously being here. I think it's been great so far, and
Thank you.
obviously we'll have you back again.
I
You're welcome.
appreciate that.
Let's get into it. Very welcome. Let's get into a few more comments, just to see what you guys have tonight. I mean, if you don't have any specific questions, it's okay. We do have some really interesting things that we're going to share here in a bit,
Yeah.
especially in regards to a specific case. If you want to prime that, what you shared earlier before the
I
show.
do have
um,
something. If you want to share the screen, if there's no question specifically, there's a timeline that we can look at a little bit. Um,
sure.
Kind of a little background of the historical of what's going on. So there's something. If you want to share my screen, I think it'll be up there.
All right, give me a second. Actually, there is a question before we get into that. I do want to read. There's two good questions, so this is cool. I'm glad you guys are trying to get more interactive since Michael is here. This
Mhm.
comes from. I'll highlight this. This is fine. This comes from Mo Miller, and I believe your comment does come up on the screen. Why does it not come up on the screen? Oh, there's another super chat. I'm sorry. When Moon Michael BSV $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Mike Cornwell, Elon Muff. But yeah, it's Mo Miller, and it's from, let's see here. I think it's further up. Here it is. 7:17. So only, just about, what is that, about 15 minutes ago. Mo says, please, if someone can answer this question, how many BSV and BTC are left to purchase? And can we go to any site to see these? I mean, I had the answer, but you want to go ahead and share that?
I'm gonna let you answer. I mean, there was one time when I knew it. I followed it a lot. I don't follow it as much anymore. I know that it's very close to the same because they both had the same genesis block because they both came from the same seed. But I think they diverged just a little bit. But I'm going to be quiet and let you answer that because I know you're a lot more on the technical side.
That you answered it for me. That's the way I look at it as well. Unless something changed, you need to look at the tokenomics pretty much the same in that regard, and I think that's basically what's going on. However, it
Well, what
is
is
a
the
lot
answer
easier
though?
to get
Help me out.
BTC. Well, I was gonna say it's just to me it seems like a lot easier to get BTC than BSV, obviously off of exchanges. I mean, like KuCoin, blocking people out of the United States, or people that have this in cold storage, or the recent thing that happened with Coinbase. They basically give everybody a warning saying, hey, if you don't get it off of here, we're gonna exchange it for something else. Okay, well then what the heck happens with that BSV that you took custody of, right? What are you gonna do with that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they're
had
gonna
some
keep
problems
it.
with that too. Yeah. That's why I always try to keep my coins off the exchange as much as possible. I'll tell you an interesting story. In late 2017, I forwarded some money to Gemini, and I was in an airport, and apparently I didn't have two-factor authorization back at that time, and so my phone got hacked because I used a public Wi-Fi. And so what happened is when I got home, and it was right around Christmas time in December 17, like December 21st, 22nd. And as soon as I got back, I couldn't log on to Gemini. There was something going on, and I intuitively knew, okay, someone hacked me. So I reached out to Gemini to let them know. Well, the hacker was very smart because they did it right on December 22nd. And so they took control. Well, Gemini had let's say, fail safes in place where you could reach out to them and they would lock down your account. The thing is, there was an automatic lockdown for 24 hours, and then they didn't respond because it was like an auto reply. So I was calling them and I was emailing them and said, look, someone's taking control of my account. I just put some money in. I'm concerned. Sure enough, when the 24 hours ended, I saw the person get on and I saw him, take the money and buy BTC. And I was going crazy. I was emailing them and said, you're letting this person, this hacker, run away with my money as we speak. I documented it so well, and I wrote to Gemini about it that even though I was, they got away with all the money that I had put in, because I documented it so well. Later on, a sheriff somewhere up in Santa Clara reached out to me, and I gave him all the documentation that I had provided to Gemini about it, and they actually caught the guy, and I got some money reimbursed. It was only like maybe 20 to 25% of it. But it was at least, and the gentleman who actually did it served time in prison. So
He's not exactly a gentleman for doing that.
Well, you know,
I get what you're saying though. Yeah.
yeah, everyone is just, you know, there's so many scams and bots, and they're out there now. Like, you know, if you're not very careful with identity, which is the whole thing, and which is why I believe this whole debate that's going on now with the Copa v. Craig Wright is so important, because you have to prove your identity. Even on Twitter, you know, they have check marks if you verified your identity, and KYC is very important, because otherwise you don't know who you're dealing with.
You're absolutely right about that. We're gonna do now is there's just like a
Before
couple
you
more
go,
questions.
did we
Yeah.
answer his
Go ahead.
question? I think he specifically wanted to know how many were left. I think it's the majority of them are mined, are they not? Can you answer that question for him or no?
Okay, I see what you're saying. No, that part. I thought you were talking about as far as tokenomics. I probably read that wrong. So
Yeah, I think what he's looking for is how many of the 21 million have been mined and how many are left to be mined, I think. And I don't have
okay.
that, but so, you know, but
I
like you said,
apologize. Sometimes I read a lot of questions and it comes across differently.
yeah,
So
okay, no worries.
yeah. Here's another thing though. If you go to, I'm going to use CMC, but last time I went to CMC, just to give you a heads up, Mo, I did see a slight difference in regards to BSV compared to
Yes.
BTC, and it was, I think it was like it showed a total supply of 19 million compared to BTC, which is supposed to be 21 million and some change. So there is that, and of course that plays, of course, a factor into the whole greater scheme of things too. So just gonna throw that out there.
CMC, I guess you're referring to CoinMarketCap, right? Because
Yeah, I always call CMC.
That's what I used early on. It was one of the first ones, one of the better ones, where you could get the pricing and the updates. And I actually made a spreadsheet that updated through CMC all the time. You know, I just had a tech guy help me with that. So I had an idea of what, you know, everything was worth as it, you know, almost live.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty neat in itself. I did see another question that came in for a brief moment. It's from Corey B. Bay, and then we'll kick it back to what we have with Michael.
Okay.
Corey says, thanks, Max and Michael. I believe in BSV. The question he has is, do you think the institutions that were given the okay to have a spot BTC ETF actually are aware of Craig Wright BSV court case? I'll let you answer that first. I'll give my own 2 cents.
Yeah, personally, I think that they are absolutely aware of it. You know, here's the thing: everyone, whatever you've done, if you started something, let's just talk about Kraken or Gemini. You know, if you start selling something, BTC in this case, let's say you don't even know that it's a security, and maybe it wasn't when they first started, but if it becomes a security and that's where you make all your money, it's very hard to get away from what you're doing that makes money. And so, you know, I think there's one of the things I have here. I think Kraken is being investigated right now by authorities. I think that just came out January of 2024, just recently. So, you know, anything, in my opinion, that is going to be considered a security, and anything that isn't exposed to the market by the person who issues it without, you know, allowing other people to do it, is a security. I think Ethereum is definitely a security. I don't think there's going to be any question about that. And so, actually, I just lost my train of thought, so I'm going to let you take
It's
over.
okay.
Max.
It's okay. No worries. I do the same thing sometimes too. You know what it is? We're both thinking of too many things at once. We're having scalability problems right now, everybody. Oh, anyway.
Well, I will say this, you know, in March of 19, I did suffer, you know, a serious injury, you know, with where I was in a coma and suffered a serious brain injury, and so there's lingering effects for sure.
That's right. My bad. I'm still, you know, kind of in the process of getting to know you. You did mention that earlier, so you definitely get a pass with that, and it's definitely understandable. All right, so what we're gonna do now is, you know, I'm just kind of double checking the other screen, trying to keep the balance of everything. was it John Francis? Wasn't Jed McCaleb involved with Mt. Gox? I actually don't know that. Was he? Do you know? Do you know that on the top of your head? Just, thought we'd answer that real quick.
You know what? That sounds familiar. That was such a long time ago. I know there was one gentleman who was the primary guy. I can't remember his name.
It does sound familiar with Jed McCaleb, though.
It does. Anyway. It sounds very familiar. And I wasn't super involved with the Mt. Gox thing. I was aware of it because, I was interested in the space at the time. I will say another interesting that's like this dragon, the BSV dragon. It's interesting because 2024 is interesting, the year of the dragon in Chinese culture, right? So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time right now.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You got that thing presented in regards to. You want to talk about that real quick? What you have on? They need to pull off onto the other screen. And then another thing I was going to get into is earlier you brought up the whole thing of, for instance, like what is mined and what is left. I think also you're talking about briefly like something that reminded me of. I have to say that you guys are, same opinion, but what was it? I'm going to check this out. 7 days ago, I did a video about Terranode, 1 million TPS. And there was this interview with, for instance, Jamie, Dimon of JP Morgan. And he was saying that he felt as though that as soon as Satoshi decides to come out of the woodwork, with this whole, maybe because of the whole COPA trial, I don't know, that basically there's going to be like the value is just going to go to like nothing, basically. Value for BTC. And then what? Value gets, liquidated, and then tons of liquidity opens up for BSV. I mean, that's where a lot of people are going with this, But it was interesting to hear him, of all people, a guy who literally told all his employees at one point or another, you can't own any Bitcoin. He didn't say BTC, any Bitcoin. And if you're caught doing so, blah, blah, blah. And then that same weekend, as a lot of you guys have seen, I think it was like on a Saturday, he goes out and he just loads up, backs up the truck. And so people say, well, that's illegal. Right. It's illegal with stocks because those are securities, but it's not illegal in regards to what? Crypto, because we don't have those regulations. Nobody can actually come after them. You know what I mean? So I thought I would share that in a bit. Just back to the reference of what you were talking about as well. Yeah, but let's go ahead and get this
on the internet. I'm just going to bring it up real quick.
That's okay.
Something out on the internet. I think it's called The Great Taking, which talks about how, let's say the powers that be in the world are looking to, back in the 20s, 30s, they did the whole thing with gold, and it became illegal to own gold and everything. Only this time it might be securities. That are going to be the way they've got everything through the laws that have been passed in the last 15, 20 years, where securities might be the way that the wealth transfer is taken from the average person to the elites.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, the great taking.
Let's pull up. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull up this. Here we go.
Yeah, so that I guess that's basically a nice timeline, and you can see if you go down to the green where the actual fork occurs. I think that's where I think that's around just before segregated witness, and Bitcoin Cash is where BTC split from BTC to BTC and BCH. And of course, I was very actively involved in that. I became a huge supporter and believer in BCH. And I'm although I'm a conservative person, when I believe something with my heart and soul, I'm pretty aggressive with moving certain assets in a certain direction. I'll take a larger percentage. So I put a much larger percentage into the Bitcoin Cash of the assets. And then the BTC kept going. And if you follow the orange here on this side, you can see then BTC came down, and once segregated witness came in, which of course cut the chain of signatures, it became an anonymous rather than a pseudonymous coin. And then you have these other two forks down here, Bitcoin Gold and Bitcoin Diamond. Now, if you owned some BTC or Bitcoin way back here, you got all of this because it's kind of like owning a stock before it splits. So then on
Okay.
this split over on this side was Bitcoin Cash. And then down around here sometime is where, I met Roger Ver. I met him in Acapulco. He actually gave a presentation, and I think his name was, or he was, I don't know if he was self-referred or others called him Bitcoin Jesus. He actually did a lot of good things for the space, as far as I'm concerned. He educated a lot of people, and he brought a lot of people on board. But him and Craig Wright didn't see eye to eye, and that's when right down here you see the split between Roger Ver and Bitcoin Cash and Craig Wright and BSV. Somewhere in here is where I came to know of Craig Wright. And once I saw a few videos, and the one I remember the most is where he was giving a talk down in Colombia, and about how, if you had, let's say, fishermen out in the boat, and they had, just taken a bunch of fish, and they were going to bring it in, and where were they going to sell it? And with Bitcoin, they could look online and find 3 or 4 different, let's say, restaurants, local restaurants, that would want to buy those fish, and they could find which one was best as they're coming in from the ocean, and just take their fish right there and sell it to the, the best bidder. And that was just like one idea that he had, that he talked about, that made tremendous sense to me as far as who he was, what Bitcoin was. It resonated with my belief of how Bitcoin should be. And then the more I researched into it, and I actually read the court case that Craig Wright was involved in with Ira Kleiman, and who was I guess the brother of David Kleiman early on. So I studied that, and I read everything I could about Craig Wright. And the more I read, and the more I watched, and the more I learned, the more I became convinced that he probably was the creator of Bitcoin. Although I had no direct knowledge firsthand, I still believed it. And so there was enough circumstantial evidence, as far as I was concerned, that he was. And then a lot of the things that he said have come true. For example, there was an early interview where he was on a panel, and he said that Bitcoin was Turing complete. Of course, I didn't even know what Turing complete was, but I learned very quickly. And one of the other gentlemen said, well, that seems to be a very unique view you have. You should write a paper on it. So Craig Wright did that. And now we see that, in fact, BSV does appear to be Turing complete, as long as you do the proper, channels of way you move stuff around, which apparently they've done. I look back at the debate, which was, big blocks were going to destroy Bitcoin, that it couldn't be handled. That now is never brought up by anybody in the BTC camp anymore, because it's been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that BSV, is doing massive blocks with no problem. And so and I've seen a lot of people say, anyone who uses BSV sees that it works just like the old BTC did years ago. So experiential knowledge is a very interesting way, to understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this breakdown that you got here. If maybe somebody else has already shared something like this, but on your Twitter, if you wouldn't mind, maybe
and
retweeting
this
that.
obviously isn't mine. I don't know. I just take these things off the internet, and someone else did the work to do this, and it's a very nice overview of what's going on.
Yeah, we do things like that all the time to share, keep people informed. Especially when it comes to other altcoins and how they're connected. We talk a lot about the ISOs and stuff like that. Well, that's very, very cool. Are you wanting to share this screen as well?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So, the Simpsons, okay, I mentioned earlier, they have been known to give us a lot of information over then. And it's interesting, you got the Bitcoin over here, and then the little Bitcoin with the little one, but then look, Bitcoin SV with Homer.
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in on that for a little bit. Yep, look at that.
Yeah. So, and what does that say? Interested in?
Let me go into the other screen real quick.
Yeah,
I got to zoom in myself.
It's spelled interested.
Oh yeah, interested.
Yeah.
Bitcoin SV.
Very interesting. There was a lot about the Simpsons and what happened prior to 9/11 and all that is certainly out there for anyone who wants to go watch it.
Yeah, it is incredibly interesting how it says that on the book. Huh. All right. Let's see. There's just a couple more questions, and then we're gonna kick it back. We're roughly 50 minutes into it. I do want to definitely get into what you have in regards to the case that that you testify for and so on. So
Yeah.
if
Okay.
you want to get that one primed and ready, we'll get that going
Have you
here in a
stopped
bit.
my
Let's
share
see.
so I can do that? If you'll stop my
Well,
share.
yeah, I did stop it. That way, okay.
Yeah, that way I can
Um,
go because I got all kinds of
yeah,
weird
it's not
stuff going
popping up right now. I understand.
on. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Definitely. I understand that, guys. Let's see here. Let's welcome some more questions. April Cornwall's in the house. Dingy, welcome, welcome. Calm, focus, truth. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's see what kind of questions you got. I think I saw a couple, but maybe I'm overthinking it. Kind of rapid fire going through the Stump Rider, Summer Fudd. Thank you guys for being here. Hiru Tamani, where's liquidity coming from coming from for all this work? That's the last question we have so far.
So liquidity, that's interesting. So liquidity, for my opinion, is Tether is providing the liquidity for most of the BTC purchases. I think liquidity comes organically, mostly for BSV. I think there was a talk that some of it might have come from Korea, recently. I think was it Korea, I believe it was, or Vietnam, where there was an article and then a bunch of purchases were made. There's speculation that it's Calvin Ayre who's buying it or moving it. And I don't focus too much on price. To me, it's more about utility and long-term value that matters. And if you just keep your eye on that, that's more important than price. So I've never been one to try and chase price, or even though I've paid attention to the analysis and the metrics that go into trading, much more important if you can find out what's causing people to trade than to focus on the trading metrics. People get lost in the waves and which way is it going to go now. I saw a very interesting article about how the halving and how Bitcoin has followed a very similar pattern right before and after the halving over the last 4 years. So they're projecting BTC to go through the roof. However, if you're not paying attention to who's orchestrating that behind the scenes and what their ultimate end game is, then you might be left holding the bag, just like Gavin was when the Luna went to zero, right? And then I think that when Tether goes to zero, which I don't see where it can go anywhere else because it's just creating money out of thin air, much like the Federal Reserve does. It's just a matter of time.
Great way of looking at it. We're gonna get into a couple super chats. So for one, I want to thank Calm Focus Truth. Thank you so much for the $10, or it might be different from 10, but anyway, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that super chat. Really do appreciate you being here tonight. On top of that, we have him. He says, keep up good work, MC. I don't know if he's referring to you or Mike Cornwell. Maybe he's referring to both of you guys. And then on top of that, we have Elon Muff with a 99-cent super sticker. So thank you again, both of you guys. Calm, Focus Truth, Mike Cornwell. And then we do have a question that came right before this from River, and it's to you, Michael. He says, what's your take on the recent deposit to the Genesis wallet? Hey, great question, River. Thank you for good question.
That's an awesome question. Okay, my personal opinion is it is Craig Wright. He's the one who has the incentive to do it. He was ordered by the judge to set aside a certain amount of funds that will make the BTC camp whole, and therefore that's his way of doing it. And it also is strategic, because if now I wouldn't want to be in the camp of Copa, because now as this goes to trial and they start to, Meta pulls out, and I heard there's another one that is on shaky ground. I think you were the one, Max, who said that earlier today. As this all starts to come to light, and it goes to trial, I mean, Craig Wright's already, if it is Craig Wright that did this, right? He's already put the money in, so he proves his point. And Craig Wright doesn't worry about money. He's just not money motivated. He's proven that, as far as I'm concerned. If he really does have all this money, what's his motive for being out there? And everyone says he's doing all these things and causing all these problems and suing everyone, when the truth is he's the one who's being sued. He's mostly defending himself and defending his creation. That's how I see it. So I think that specifically, to get back to the question, the recent deposit to the Genesis wallet, I think, was his way of complying with the court order, and also being able to prove his point when the time comes. And of course, let's look at the public offer that he just made, which would have given COPA the, if they really are into open patents, then he was giving them the right to continue to have a license in perpetuity to use whatever it is they're doing: Bitcoin, BTC, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, all of them. So how does COPA get around the fact that, they're being offered a settlement that kind of goes right in line with what it is that they're saying they want?
One way I interpret it, I don't know if you agree with this, I just want to throw in my own little 2 cents on this. So, in light of that settlement offer with COPA, mentioning like what you just talked about, Bitcoin Cash, some of the other ones, right? The way I look at it, he even mentioned, was it Bitcoin ABC, now called eCash, right?
Yeah, that's another derivation, from BCH.
Yeah. So with that said, it's like, he didn't have to say, basically, look, here, you guys can have this, take it, do as you please, open market, whatever. The way I look at it is like, he says specifically, look, be free to do what you want with those. I don't care what you do with those anymore. But at least give me my creation, which is BSV, the original Bitcoin.
And the reason they can't is they can't compete in the open market. If you have if you're driving a Dodge Dart, and I'm driving a Lamborghini, and we're going to do a race and say, let's just compete in the open market. If you're driving the Dodge Dart, you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that. I mean, like, people are talking about the tech. I mentioned this the other day. I said, comparing, BSV, when you're talking about, scaling up, like this whole thing with Terranode, millions of TPS. But we know that eventually we'll go to the next big milestone. It'll be billions. Or what Satoshi was talking about, right? With the block sizes, which is, when you were trying to wrap your head around it, it's just like, oh my gosh. I remember my dad, he used to be really good about, his memorization about like the speed of light and how fast it travels per second and stuff like that. And when Satoshi was on, not this show, but I did collaboration with him, he was talking about a specific trillions per second, right? That's what, BSV can go to. And I'm thinking to myself, what is the speed of light again? And what is that? And then being in that same conversation just seems bonkers. And some people say, well, excuse me, that we don't need that. We never need that. And I used this example yesterday, and I also want to pick your brain on this one, because the way I look at it is, there's a lot of complaints about the metaverse, right? There's not much going on with the metaverse. And I use this analogy, and please, I want to know what you think about this. I said, think about this, guys. You drive by malls that existed from the 60s and the real popular, especially when I was a kid, 80s and 90s. Going to the mall was a thing. Get girl's phone number, buying clothes or food court, go down the ice rink, whatever, right? But all across America, these physical malls are basically like ghost towns. And what do we have now? You have, you have virtual malls in the metaverse, and that's just one little aspect of the metaverse. By the way, there's the educational side, all this stuff, literally virtual cities in the metaverse. And so I'm thinking, for the people who are not realizing that, something like, I hate to say it, 1000 TPS, 2000 TPS, Hedera is impressive. They're not bad with, was it 28,000 TPS. Then you have BSV that can do apparently at now millions of TPS, then scaling up to billions and trillions. And some people say, well, I still don't get it. I don't understand why we need that. And then I gave the example, and shout out to Edward Vincent. We had this conversation last night, just real quick. And that is, to all you guys that play World of Warcraft, that video game back in the day, you connect to these servers, MMORPGs, massive, what's it called? Massive multiplayer online RPGs. These servers have 30 to 50,000 people in them. And I never forget coming right into the server, and all these people are on my screen. And then there's a certain degree of, for instance, like freezing. And some people say, well, that has nothing to do with network congestion. That has to do with, your graphics card just not keeping up with it. Bullcrap. It's a combination of both. And then can you imagine? That's just a video game. Which, by the way, at one point, World of Warcraft had, I think, pulled in more GDP than a third world country at some point. It was crazy, right? So my thing is this: if those issues exist in just a video game, right, with scalability issues, clearly scalability issues. Now apply that to the metaverse. So if I'm the likes of your Zuckerbergs and so on, and literally change my name from Facebook to Meta, then I'm recognizing, and I'm saying to myself, and he's a smart guy, let's be honest, he might not even a team of people that need to give him the memo, but the memo stands as, which one out of all of these just smokes the competition? Like, the competition is, the speed of sound and whatever speed that is. And then there's BSV, the speed of light, and whatever that is. Like, am I too far off when it comes to this? You get what I'm saying?
Well, it's
that's the way I look at it.
Well, you make a lot of good points right there. And it just had me thinking, one of the things that these numerous transactions per second are going to allow is with combining it with IPv6, which is where, there's numerous addresses that will allow, there's a protocol for payments in the original TCP/IP that has been sitting there waiting. And the creator of Bitcoin knew that. And so that allows micropayments. So that means computers will be able to pay computers. So you're talking about mega farms for, growing whatever kind of food you want. You're talking about computer games like you're talking, where a good friend of mine has a son that plays in Rocket League, where they do these, they kick a ball around inside of a sphere, and they've got huge followings, and it's all online. I come back from the days where there was America Online, where it was and you were.
I unfortunately remember that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were barely get any kind of throughput, and now because of the ever increasing Moore's law of technology, that stuff is, I still have my original AOL account or whatever it was. I think I created it so that I would remember. I think it's Mike 33SD. I was 33 years old when I created that, so I'm 61 now. So that was 28 years ago when I created my first, online account.
Yeah, I did have AOL as well. I didn't have 56K modem, but I had 28.8, and it was brutal. Anyway.
Yeah. You hear that sound, and then you would be there. And
that sound is cringe. It's just, I cringe even to this day that I was like, sure. There was DSL back then, and I subjected myself to using that garbage anyway. But that's how it was. But another thing I want to mention in regards to scalability real quick was, so again, back to the World of Warcraft thing, was at the height of World of Warcraft, right? Like, they were bringing, like, I think over 10 million subscribers or $10 million per month, which is insane. And then they give you a server list, right? And it's like, let's say it's me and you, Michael. You're like, hey, Max, what server are you playing on? And I'm like, well, first of all, what alliance are you part of? You're like, For the Horde. So we agree that you're a orc warrior and I'm a a paladin or something like that, and we're like, well, let's go play on Vishintu server. So we go there, and you're like, dang man, this thing's like almost at max capacity, 50,000. But we're like, well, that's where everyone's at. That's where all our friends are at. We go in there, we connect, and then there's a freeze. And it's just like, well, how long is this going to last? I don't know, man. There's a lot of people on the server. Again, back to the whole thing. That's just a video game. The metaverse in itself, there's multiple metaverses. And like the analogy I was trying to share earlier was the physical malls are ghost towns. The virtual malls are built, but there's not enough people there yet. But what happens when there's a lot of people there and we do have that mass adoption? You can't have an issue with scalability. Me, Michael Middleton, Elon Musk, Boomer Effin Sooner, Corey Bebe, all you guys, Tim Shea, who sprays from far away. Tim Shea spraying away with his machine gun in the game. You don't play a game probably. He doesn't want to have an issue where he's shooting at the target and the bullets don't land at the target because major leg issues, right? So all I'm saying is, yeah,
my son used to
scalability
play
issues.
those games online, and I was in the other room trying to connect to work, and so we have limited bandwidth back in the day, and so I had to go and tell my son, okay, it's you need to get off because I got to work. That's just the way it was. And then there were times I'd say, okay, I'm done working. You can get back on now. And because he would, his game, well, what is it? Game of Thrones, or what was that car game where you go Grand Theft Auto, he
Right.
was into all those things. And so, he would get online with his buddies and, they'd have a great time. And I understood that, but he was sucking down all the bandwidth that we had available.
That's another thing, bandwidth have available. I mean, what about, again, Meta or whatever one it is in the future? There's multiple metaverses having issues because they're like, yeah, you know what? We didn't go with BSV, the king of kings when it comes to scalability, right? We went with this particular one, and now we have people throttling on their connection. People are going to be like, forget this. I'm not going to go with this. And if anything, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, all right, I'm going to look more into this. There's this thing called BSV, and apparently these other metaverses have that. All right, I'm going to jump ship. I'm going to go to that, right? And then whoever built that metaverse has a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And think about it. I mean, I think Craig Wright, I don't know who started using the term meta first, but I know as long as I can remember, there was the idea Craig Wright said he was building the meta net, and that, BSV was going to be, that everything was going to run on the meta net. And so, that interesting thoughts are living beings. We haven't really touched on the spiritual side. I've been into spiritual pursuits most of my life. I've read numerous things, including the Bhagavad Gita and autobiography of a yogi and different things like that. And of course, I have my own thing that I've followed, which I mentioned it when in my first podcast with Gavin, Thinking in Destiny, which I've been a meditator for years now. Actually wrote an essay 20 years ago regarding my experiences with that, with the Kundalini experience I had. So that, to me, that's the foundation of everything is, why are we here? What's the purpose of life? Who are we in the body? Are we really the body, or are we a conscious entity that lives inside the body? And that now, the word consciousness, which, believe it or not, is a very interesting word in and of itself, has 13 letters. And I think, there's our current calendar has 12 months instead of, the 13 months that I think it had years ago, or a long time ago, when it, tracked the cycle of the moon and, of course, the female cycle. A lot of that is now coming out, and people are realizing there's more to life than what we've been told, and that the history is his story of somebody who wants us to believe certain things.
Okay. Well, let me see here real quick. See if we have anything else. What's that?
You want to share the thing and go back to the Veritasium real quick?
Yeah, I am. In about 30 seconds. I at least want to recognize this because, I mean, what's the point of people dropping super chats if I don't click on them? 804. Yeah, 6 minutes, not too long of a wait. Stump Rider says $20 super chat. Thank you so much, man. That means a lot, Stump.
That's
He's been
very
a long
generous.
time, long time supporter of this community. He says, Max and Michael, thank you both for your points and view and keeping us up to date. In the end, we want the best for this new asset class. I can agree more.
Yep. Yeah, very well said. And you know, you support. There's many ways you can support people. You can do it with kindness. You can do it with words. You can do it with thoughts, and you can do it with your own stored value, which is what is money. It's just a store of value. It's something, unless you stole it, which most of us have not. You had to work for it, and so when you're giving your money to someone else, it shows. It's a nice way of showing appreciation.
Yeah, it definitely is. We always appreciate that. One other thing I was going to read real quick, other than that super chat, this is a good statement. I mean, Michael here was talking about IPv6. Cool Cat Crypto talks about that. Obviously, Satoshi. Anybody at BSV is going to mention this. IPv6, according to Calm Focus Truth, will cement BSV and Bitcoin and blockchain for planet. Right. They have an exclusive technology that's game changer.
I like his name too, Calm Focus Truth. I mean, that's well thought out.
Yeah.
And,
all right, what we're going to do now is finally get into one of the main topics that we wanted to get into. I think this is really unique that you're bringing this. Here it is. And basically speaking, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, but not too far down. Give Michael a chance to explain some of this. So this was a case that you were a part of. You want to, give us a breakdown?
I was called to testify. So what happened is I first found out about Veritasium, and I missed the ICO. And I had been watching Reggie Middleton on YouTube, and I was very impressed by him. He actually did interviews with his son and his daughter, and he talked about his accomplishments in the stock market and predicting things. And so he was talking about what he had created, which was Veritasium. And so I reached out to him directly because I had missed his ICO. And eventually I ended up acquiring some of his Veritasium for Bitcoin. And that was like one of my very first Bitcoin transactions, was to acquire Veritasium. Well, in 2019, I was contacted after my accident, when I suffered the brain injury. I was contacted by the SEC to testify regarding my acquisition because they were trying, in my opinion, to shut Veritasium down. And so I gave a declaration, and I was actually interviewed in front of one of my attorneys by the SEC. And they interviewed me, and Reggie's attorneys were there. I did not see Reggie there. I was in my attorney's office when the interview took place, which is sometime in August of 19, I believe, August 21st, I believe. And so I had to do a declaration. I also provided all of the documentation I had between Reggie and I, which was emails and how we were going to make the acquisition and stuff like that, which we did. And Reggie's lawyers questioned me for, I don't know, maybe 19, 20 minutes, and I answered all their questions. The SEC only had like 2 questions for me, and I don't even remember what they were. But when they were done, they realized that I wasn't going to, I was comfortable with my acquisition, and I was comfortable with holding it onto it. And I didn't believe that Reggie had misrepresented at all. And so it just kind of went where it went. And so this is the declaration that I gave to them prior to my testimony back in 2019.
I don't think I've ever came across somebody who is able to share something like that. So we definitely, do appreciate you being here and mention this. I do have to ask this question. I'm sure there's somebody here that's probably wondering this. Did you get to meet the Gopher?
The Gopher?
Gary the Gopher Gensler?
No.
Okay. Thought I had. Most likely not. I just thought I had to ask that.
Yeah, anyway. and I have to apologize. You're going to have to help me more with that. The name sounds familiar, but I don't even know who it is.
Gary Gensler of the SEC?
Gensler.
I said Gary the Gopher Gensler. Anyway, they probably threw you off. That's okay. Yeah.
No.
Bad nickname we have for him. Anyway,
I know my attorney was saying, look, you're going to be able to get your money back. And I told my attorney, look, you don't understand. I'm not really interested in my money back. If I wanted it, Reggie actually offered it to me in our correspondence. You know, if you're unhappy with the purchase, he offered to buy it back, because I had made a question to him because I think back in that time, the only way to acquire it was through an exchange called Ether Delta, which was a very crazy exchange, and prices were way up and way down. So I bought it when the prices were way up, and then a few days later, the price went way down. And I reached out to Reggie and said, "Hey, and Reggie said, look, he was very honest and direct with me, and said, look, this is what it was, and I told you this is what it was, and if you want your money back, I'll give it back to you." And I said, no, I don't want to be a problem. I'm just curious. And so, and we still communicated and I actually bought, he did some reports on Populus, which was one of the ERC token 20 ERC tokens that I purchased through Ethereum. And he created a couple reports and I still have them. And of course, that interesting one, Populus was a platform where online they were going to do factoring of receivables, and it took off. And of course, I never sold it, and then it crashed way back down. So today, you win some, you lose some. So
yeah, it's interesting. One thing I think I want to point out is, well, so let me remove that for a second. When you were originally messaging me, you were telling me about like your crypto journey, if you will,
yeah,
2013, and kind of like the title of this, BTC to BSV, a Satoshi Millionaire's journey with special guest, obviously you.
yeah.
At what point in that journey, if you could recall the year, maybe you can't. I think maybe you said 2020. I can't remember, but there had to have been something definitive other than maybe it is scalability. I don't know, but what really shine for you in regards to like, hey, you want to know something? Yeah, BTC like did amazing things for me. But as the saying goes, I see the light. This nothing else compares. As a lot of our audience has mentioned as far as utility.
It was
Um,
basically once, and I think
yeah,
it was 2017. Once it came to the point that when I learned about Blockstream and the name and the fact that they were adamant about not only keeping the block size down, but they were going to disable a lot of the opcodes, and that they were already getting ready to do that. I thought, this is not, and then they were calling it digital gold. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not digital gold. Of course, you can hold it and maybe it'll go up in value, maybe it won't. But certainly the white paper doesn't talk about, digital gold. It talks about electronic cash. So it was pretty obvious to me right during the initial split and right after that split, when SegWit was introduced. It didn't take me long to figure out. I was kind of initially for SegWit, but once I realized, it doesn't take me long, once I see what's happening with the writing on the wall, that would have been for me the seminal moment when I said, okay, BTC, Blockstream, they're keeping a 1 megabyte. I researched and saw that there was it wasn't part of the original protocol to limit the block size. It was if you read some of the original forums with, when Craig Wright or whoever the Satoshi was posting, he kind of agreed to do it, but he kept it open that, later on we're gonna take this block size limit off. And they put it on initially to prevent scamming, I believe, spamming, where, a bunch of people would come in and maybe attack the network and spam it when it was kind of in its nascency. So yeah, to answer your question, it would have been around that time frame. Once the split occurred, I realized, didn't mean I sold BTC at the time. I just started to convert because BTC was still being traded through all the exchanges. So you want to hold on to any asset that still has value, and it certainly did.
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to now bring up that thing I was telling you about earlier in regards to Jamie Dimon and his point of view. This is when he was at
Okay.
Davos a few weeks ago. It's just a
Okay.
short, like I think it's like 45 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and
All right.
share that. A lot of our viewers, listeners have already seen this because it's an actual video from not long ago. But I've gone ahead and fast forwarded to this particular mark. All right, so this is from the Tarot Node video I did about a week ago.
Okay.
And so you're gonna see my face twice. So I'm gonna pull us off for a second, do a full screen, and then let's actually just play this. You might hear
Okay.
me for a bit. Here we go.
Oh yeah, I saw this too. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you didn't, but after you do see it, I think you'll lean more towards, yeah, I know why Max included this on BSV segment. Yeah, it's going to play this. It's only 25 seconds. We'll jump back into the outline here a bit. Here we go.
Yeah, but gold's limited in supply,
So it's Bitcoin.
and it's been used. So you think so, huh?
I do.
I think there's a good chance that when Bitcoin, when we get to
They're
that
gonna
20
go to
million
42
Bitcoins,
million, they go to
that-
42.
no, that Satoshi's going to come on there, laugh hysterically, go quiet, all Bitcoin's going to be erased.
I think, man.
How the hell do you know it's going to stop at
not-
21?
not possible.
I've never met one person who told me they know for a fact. They take that as
Mathematically, it's not. It
How's-
can't happen because
Can't happen because he gets cut off. So your thoughts. I've been wanting to hear your thoughts.
All right, so here's my thoughts. That Jamie Dimon obviously is one of the elite, and as far as I'm concerned, they like to forecast what's going on. I've heard rumors that BTC might actually expand and change. They've changed the protocol before. So what's to stop them from changing a number of Bitcoin that can be issued? It cannot be done in BSV because the protocol is locked down. But in BTC, they've already changed the opcodes. So is Jamie Dimon kind of letting us know what's on the horizon with BTC? Are they going to increase the number of coins that are available by changing the protocol? I don't know. But when he speaks, I'd like to listen and I like to read between the lines. So I feel he's kind of letting us know. And of course, he's making fun of Bitcoin and he made fun of it all along. Meanwhile, he's pocketing millions, if not billions of dollars on his activities.
Not that you would, I always tell people not financial advice, right? So clearly not financial advice, but
No, not at all.
Next time he talks, right, and mentions some of these hints, because in my opinion, a lot of these guys talk in code, and also in my opinion, when we talk about insider trading, you can get away with insider trading when it comes to crypto, as long as it's not labeled as security. Hence, we understand the things that happen with XRP. So they can't really go after him, right? Because it's still the Wild West of crypto to a sense, because we don't have proper regulations and so on. So with that said, if he was to hint, like you were saying, wouldn't that be like, a person that, a dream to short BTC?
Yeah. Do me a favor and share my screen one more time.
Oh yeah, no problem. Let me zoom out for a second.
So this is something. Thank you. This is something that I found years ago, and this is when I was first looking at the 1 megabyte blocks, and look at it. It says capacity matters. So here's Bitcoin, BTC, and of course you see that the moniker is tilted to the right. 5 to 7 transactions a second. Now back at this point in time, which was years ago, Bitcoin SV was 10,000 transactions a second with 200 megabyte blocks. And of course, look at you got a huge, let's call it, almost looks like an aircraft carrier coming through the canal there. And it does matter. Capacity matters, scaling matters. And now if you were to, you could take that aircraft carrier and turn it into a fleet if you're talking 1 million transactions a second. So I can't remember when I originally, pulled this off of the internet, but it does point to what really matters. Utility and capacity and scale matters.
I love visuals. I used to teach, and that's one thing we would always do is, good visuals. So this is a really cool visual. Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
I mean, 2,000 megabyte blocks compared to 1 megabyte is a night and day difference.
Yeah, and we're now. I mean, we're he's talking tera nodes. I mean, and then and apparently they had to do a whole lot of behind the scenes work over there at CoinGeek and at the company that Craig was working to, just to make this all possible, because very difficult to scale behind the, with all the things that need to be done, not so much in the software, the code, but in all of the way it's going to be processed through all of the different computers and the networks and things like that. I mean, all this had to be thought out way in advance. I believe Craig Wright has 30 different degrees, however many masters, and IQ. I heard somewhere between 180 and 190. I mean, and just to hear him talk, I saw him in a debate once with another gentleman who was a professor, and I couldn't even follow the debate. The things that they were throwing out and the intelligence level was hard to follow for almost anybody.
Well, I'd like to see that from the head guy. That's impressive.
Yeah, if you're gonna follow a guy, you want him to be smart.
Exactly. You don't want to sound like a doofus. So, I'm gonna actually just leave this up here for a bit because I think it's a cool visual. There's a few people I do want to welcome. I did see Mr. Brian Dowie's in the house. Thank you for being here, Brian. We also have the one and only XXI Gaming is in the house. Brandon, thank you for being here. And on top of that, Light is here. Always appreciate Light being here. On top of that, we have, I think, also Blackwood. This is a couple good things he has to say.
Okay.
Blackwood states, Jamie Dimon can say one thing and do another because no matter what people say, he can get away with it with zero consequences. True. He doesn't give a F.
Yeah, and you know what? In my belief, I agree with you, but consequences always come. I think that eventually truth wins at the end of the day, and that you may not get what's coming to you today, but there's always tomorrow. And so I just believe that what goes around comes around, and I try to live my life like I believe in present moment awareness. The idea of staying present wherever you are. The past is gone. You can never relive it. The future is never here. It never comes. And if you look in a lot of the spiritual things, the ever present now, there's Eckhart Tolle, and I followed him for years, wrote The Power of Now, A New Heaven and a New Earth. A lot of spiritual things that basically just ground you in the present moment. Because if you're lost in your mind, it's a very uncomfortable place to be. Being present, and that's why meditation now. I've meditated for years, and now I see it. I love it. I get online and I see all the different people on Twitter, and they talk about, I meditated today, and people like, how do they meditate? And for me, I just focus on breath. I just follow the breath. I've been a proponent of deep lung regenerative breathing for years. That's how I keep healthy, and try and keep a good diet too.
Right on. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
I'm going to see what comments we have left. I think we're towards the bottom of those comments. So before we close things out, we're, roughly at the hour and a half mark. I want to respect your time and then, keep a good balance of things. It's been a great show, by the way. I definitely have to do something like this again. You're very welcome. Thanks for reaching out, by the way. So with that said, let me ask you this, Michael. We understand your crypto journey started 2013, where you're at now. Obviously, the hot topic of the night is BSV. I was joking with everybody yesterday. I said we might as well just call it the BSV show featuring Michael Middleton. All right, just be honest about that, because normally, we do some coverage of various other altcoins and so on. With that said, back to the topic of BSV. Okay, is there anything for you personally as Michael Middleton that you are choosing to focus on other than the stereotypical like COPA or Terranode or anything like that? Is there anything that just kind of grabs your attention, now and maybe, I don't know, the near future?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because it allows me to answer it this way. So when I was young and I first read Thinking in Destiny, I wanted to be able to help others. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And I pretty much determined that the best way to do it was to make money. If I made money, then I could help others. And so rather than give to charities and stuff, I've actually tried to help people in my life that I've come across. And I've actually been extremely generous to almost everyone I've come across. If I can help you, I will. That's just the way I like to do it on a in the moment basis. So that's really what I'm looking at. And so what I'm looking at for the future is how do we educate others that BSV, Bitcoin, is the place to be focusing their attention. And now I'm not even talking so much about investing, although, you know, there's that's one thing, but how can you utilize BSV? So I'm working with yourself and a few others in the industry to put together a coalition, because getting people onboarded, which is I'm go back to Roger Ver, when I remember he used to give seminars, and everyone had a phone, he would just give them a little bit of BSV, you know, or not BTC. I apologize, back in the day. So that's my goal, is to pursue truth and help others get into the new world that's coming. And I think it's going to be centered around the truth. I don't think it's an accident that February 4th of 2020 was the date that the Genesis block was created for BSV, because that was the date that I had to face my own Genesis, because that was the date that you know, because I had a problem with alcohol, and I had to face my own consequences, which resulted in a prison term for that. So, but it was right on that date, and at that point in time, I was comforted by the fact that I was trying to do the right thing and overcome my personal addictions, and also that that whenever I was done, you know, paying my debt to society, that that Bitcoin, the real Bitcoin, was going to be there. So, you know, February 4th, 2020 is the date, you know, that the Genesis took place for Bitcoin and humanity, in my opinion, and in some small way for me as well.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad to see that, you know, you've had redemption and you were able to change your life around. You know, you know, I always believe that people can definitely change. And I think you're the proof in the pudding, as the saying goes.
Well, I thank you. You know, one thing I will share, you know, is during my, you know, my incarceration, I was one of the lead dog trainers, and I also was one of the oldest individuals to pass the rather difficult physical firefighting test, and I actually became a firefighter. And because I, you know, served as a firefighter in the prison system, I was able to eventually be released, you know, very early. I was very fortunate. I still did. Interesting. There's a lot of coincidences in my life. I ended up doing 926 days, you know, in state prison, and of course, I was married on 926. So, and before my incarceration began, I kind of predicted to my family. I told them I had a feeling that that's what was going to happen, that if I did everything right. And of course, when I went to prison, I was still severely impacted with a brain injury, which I think helped me because it allowed me to kind of meditate my way through being in a cell, you know.
Well, you have a lot of time to be, yeah, in your own head, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I was in 2000. I actually wanted to be able to meditate more, and I used to get up early and meditate and breathe, but I had to work. And so I kind of put a prayer into the universe that I'd love to have more time. So careful what you wish for, because then, you know, after, you know, February 4th of 2020, I had all the time I wanted to sit in a cell with no pressure just to meditate, which, you know, careful what you wish for, because it's also very difficult.
Yes, that's very true. You know, even for my own crypto journey, I had a lot of extra time. You know, I was taking care of it. My dad at the time, he passed away last month, but you know, and I was like, gosh, I gotta learn about. There has to be something out there. You know, I was pitching my game idea to some venture panels and so on, and they were so greedy with the percentage of what they wanted compared to what I would have, and then this dev team and all that stuff. And I was like adding things up. I'm like, but God, man, if I sign off on this, I'll be making like the equivalent of McDonald's. That's not what I want to do. And so I said to myself, there has to be something. This is years ago, back in 2015, 2016. There has to be something that will allow me to bring in the money that I want to properly do this. And I understand there's other avenues like crowdfunding and all that stuff, right? But I just want a little bit more freedom to be able to do it my way. And I said to myself, there has to be something. And then I thought to myself, well, let's see what happens. And this guy, you mentioned Dogecoin, he says to me, he says, I got into Dogecoin summer of 2020 at 0.005. He's like, I put 5,000 into it, and I guess he ran it up to like 5 million. And he's like, I'm gonna be able to retire early. I don't know if that's the truth. I mean, I'm still not talking to this guy because he's kind of, no offense, he's out there. But if it wasn't for that guy, I never would have gotten to altcoins. I had Bitcoin, a part of Bitcoin, right? Not a full Bitcoin since 2016. And that obviously helped me buy more altcoins. But my point is, it was Dogecoin. He said, get Dogecoin. It's a penny at the time. And so, he wanted me to put like, 5,000 into it like he did or whatever it was. And I was like, man, I'm a school teacher. I can't, we don't make much, especially in Arizona. And he's like, well, fine, put whatever you could. And so I put 300, and everybody was saying this thing was going to go to $1. And I was just like, I don't think it's going to go to $1. But so I watched this thing like a hawk every dang day. And I rode that sucker up to like, I think it was like 70 cents. And I think the highs was like 72 or 73 cents. And people are still saying, oh, this is going to go to $1. Just keep holding on. I was like, the hell with all these people. I'm going to go with my gut. You know what I mean? And long story short, yeah, my $300 investment was like, God, I think it was like 22 or 23,000, something like that. Got out, cashed out, was glad I did so. And then in my head, most people know the story, so bear with me. In my head, I'm thinking, oh, right, I want to find out other crazy things that are not just a penny, but below a penny. And that's what got me into Shiba Inu. And then after that, I was like, oh, man, this whole thing about chasing meme coins. And then finally, I was listening to some other people out there, and they're like, utility. And then I realized, yeah, you want to know something? You were reinvesting your earnings, do it the right way, research this utility stuff. And then I still couldn't shut up in 2021 talking about all this stuff. And my friends knew it. And then some of my friends encouraged me, like, look, you already have a gaming channel, which is DPG Maximus for Battlefield 5 and Call of Duty. You're good at that. Why don't you just do one for crypto? And so it was like,
Call of Duty, that's
this,
Call of Duty.
yeah,
I remember that.
well, yeah, exactly. But anyway, so like December 2021, I actually made this channel. And then, of course, then I went from this to join up with another guy. I won't get into that, and I did the whole thing with him for, I don't know, a year and a half or so. And then anyway, came back to this one. I'm here, and that's part of my journey as well. But my thing was, in your own thoughts and saying to yourself, there has to be something better. And what is better is realizing there is a great big shift, the new monetary system, all this stuff. This technology, yeah. IPv6, all this. Yes, it don't matter if it's ISO 222, this stuff and so on. It's a big shift that's going to happen. I don't want to sit on the sidelines because I did that before. And I saw that some of people I was affiliated with, and they already made it. Not gonna let it happen again. So
I want to share something with you. I hesitate to because
sure.
I hate to stage you up because I'm not trying to. But one of my
stage me up. It's all good. I welcome it. It's cool.
I apologize. Right. So Dogecoin was one of my best of all time. My acquisition cost was 0.00224, and
oh wow,
I didn't put
that right there sounds cool.
Yeah,
what was that?
And
sorry.
So when I sold it, and I sold 2/3 of it, and of course I needed to sell it because I was incarcerated and I needed to keep my business funded. So a lot of the stuff I've already gone through because I need to fund my business.
Right.
But I 100 times my money. Which was a significant amount of money that kept my business going. So Dogecoin, and the reason I bought Dogecoin is I was on, I think it was Kraken, and I was looking at what else was available, and I had some money left. I didn't know what to do with it. And I looked, and when I looked at it, it was the Bitcoin protocol, kind of like Litecoin. They just made a copy of it, and they were using the meme of a dog. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because memes are going to be the wave of the future with the younger generation. So I just threw it in there and let it sit there. And then of course I took it off the exchange as soon as I could. And then when I was actually in prison, and I had my IT guy who helped me on the outside, because I couldn't make any moves myself, but we talked about it, and I said, yeah, we should try and move some. And so we moved, like I said, 2/3 of what I bought, and the 100x, the original investment, was a really nice way. Of course, I paid taxes on all of it too, but it really gave the funds that my company needed to survive while I was gone.
That's an amazing testament of what you went through. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like, and my brother was there saying, that I was fortunate that I could fall into a swamp and come out smelling like a rose. And it was just kind of funny.
No,
So I
it's
appreciate
funny.
you.
It's funny, but good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always, grateful. Like I do what's called mantras every morning and every night before, and I've done that for a number of years. I try to do self-programming. We have passive and active thinking, and active thinking is a very small part of what we do, and passive thinking is what controls us most of the time. So when we think we know what we're doing, we're actually controlled by our passive thinking. So it's actually very hard to overcome bad habits and stuff through active thinking, but it's relatively simple if you allow mantras and passive self-suggestion in the morning after you first wake up and the night before you go to bed, because then your thoughts will run across those lines. Now, this is all stuff that I pulled directly from Thinking and Destiny, and I put it into my life, way back in 1986. And I used to say these things every day about doing the right thing and following the conscious light and the stuff within. And I know, or I feel for a fact, that's what has gotten me through, this most difficult time in my life, is that belief in trying to do the right thing.
Glad that you're trying to do the right thing, and I'm glad that you're trying to educate people about all this stuff. Michael, we can't thank you enough for. Go ahead. Sorry.
One last thing, Max. One last thing.
Sure.
When I watch your show, I pay attention to everything, and I noticed you were very dedicated to truth, and it was very easy for me to see that, and you were very adamant about it, that you're just trying to do the right thing, and you're trying to educate people, and of course you want to make money, everyone does, but you weren't going to do it at the expense of, and so you got into BSV. I watched you as you started to learn more about BSV, and you started to come around and start to say, hey, this makes a lot of sense. And the more you researched it, the more you realized that it was the truth. And you're still looking at the other things, and I'm very excited about what might be happening with the other one, Stellar, and because all that stuff could play a role. I really believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you mentioned. I mean, I know we're kind of continuously extending this a little bit longer, guys. This is okay. Some good thoughts. No, don't be sorry. It's good thoughts, good insight. Are you kidding me? Don't be sorry. People know how long I've gone in the past 5.5 hours. They call it WrestleMania. It's a joke.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen tonight.
And that's hard.
It's not going to happen tonight, but
enough that people will watch, because otherwise they'll miss the very end, because people don't have a lot of time to watch this kind of stuff.
Well, knowing that, it does create extra work for me. Like if I do 5.5 hours, I have to. I'm gonna chop it up later, but it's like, is it worth it? But anyway, it's fine. You're more than good. But what I was gonna say is, the way I look at it is, I totally get where a lot of our BSV fanatics, watch the show, they come in here and they're like, you really don't need anything else. BSV makes everything else look like garbage. And when I really think about it, I'm like, well, from the perspective of especially TPS, right? I'm a big fan of XRP. I'm a big fan of Stellar. XRP is like what, 1,500 TPS? Even at where we're at right now with Teranode, and so millions. I mean, come on. I mean, there's just like night and day difference. Like back to that picture you're sharing earlier. Actually, let's just add this real quick. This is what he's talking about. Look at that boat on the left. right? BTC 5 to 7 TPS, 1 megabyte blocks, Bitcoin SV, 10,000 TPS plus 2,000 megabyte blocks. That was actually a few years ago, right? So
Well, a couple
now,
years ago.
right, I know for a fact we went from 10,000 TPS to 100,000 TPS, and now we got this whole thing in Teranode, and that's millions. And some people, to be fair, they'll say, well, there's Tectum, that's a million, and we've talked about that. But at the same time, realize this, okay, I have nothing against Tectum. I might very well get into Tectum. I always make a joke, boom, tough acting to Nectum. That's a bad thing. But anyway, what's his name? John Madden, right? But anyway, my thing is, yeah, he was great, right? RIP John Madden. But my thing is scalability, milestones. I mean, come on, man. I mean, to go from 1 million TPS to the concept of billions, that in itself, some people will be like, well, you don't even need to go to billions. Or some people say, you don't even go to trillions. You don't know that yet. And the best example, if you're just tuning in, is what, guys? It's the concept of this metaverse. Again, back to the whole thing of our physical malls are becoming, or not becoming, they're ghost towns. But there's virtual malls that have been built over the course of crypto winter and so on. And there's a little bit going on, but not much. Why in the world would Mark Zuckerberg, all right, whether you're for him or not, go through all the trouble and the research and especially rebrand Facebook to be called Meta? Because there's something there.
Yeah, and now
they realize it's innovation. Yeah, but what I'm saying is they realize it's innovation. I mean, if we're going to be so narrow-minded, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I want people to understand this real quick. I remember back in the days, what was it, mid-2000s? I was so stuck in my ways of just, I'm comfortable with MySpace. Oh my gosh. And then my friend tells me, get off of MySpace, man. There's this new cool thing called Facebook. And I'm like, it's, I don't know. He's like, trust me. He's like, trust me. Everybody's going to leave MySpace and go to Facebook. You get what I'm saying? So that's the next stage.
Yeah. There's one thing I have to add to your previous comment about the transactions. That's just as important, but I'll tell you what else is important. It's the law side. And if all the other cryptos, and BTC and BCH included, are now not compliant because they're a security, right? And they're operating as a security, and BSV is the only one that is compliant with all the laws, then not only is it ready to move forward with the transaction basis, but it's also foundationally legal. So all the governments will want it because it will impose whatever each government wants to impose, right? And now it's just up to the people. And if you look around the world, the farmers everywhere are now uniting. I see it in the United States, I see it in France, I see it in the UK, and it's a very much a dynamic, changing world we have, where people are waking up to what is really true and what's important, and throwing off the yoke of the people who have been basically running the planet and lying to us. It's the truth.
It's going to be very interesting between, in my opinion, the end of this year and also, end of 2025. I mean, there's so many things coming up. I mean, the halving, obviously the COPA thing. It's exciting times ahead. I mean, for a person, there might be a couple people, I don't know, just tuning into some of the stuff. It's just like, for a lot of people, it's like above their head. But what a time to accumulate. I look at that chart, right? I'm sure you've seen it yourself, the different phases of crypto or even stock market and so on. And I keep telling people, I'm like, I think we're still in accumulation phase, but watch out. You can still make money in regards to accumulation to markup, but you don't want to be at the height of markup, because the height of markup is like the last cycle, BTC 69K and stuff like that. It's like,
well, I like to tell everyone, my initial acquisition was 370 for BTC, however many years ago it was. And now BSV is available at $70. It's like a second chance. It's the whole idea.
Totally.
Chance for everyone who's watching it's a little harder to acquire the BSV. There's I think MyCoinify is a place you can get it. But it's very difficult to acquire it. And I don't care if you're in the UK or the United States, wherever you are, it's hard now to find, and that's one of the things I'm looking to try and help resolve, is make it easier for those who want to get into it, find a way to get into it.
Not to put you on the spot, just real quick before we wrap things up. Speaking of getting it, as in BSV, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
people have asked, like, well, where do I get this? And, you know, like I see Cool Cat, they mention it. You know, I mentioned it. Other people mention it. There's like, for instance, like Satoshi saying the easiest place to get it from is buy.bsv.live, I think it is, or buybsv.live, that particular URL. You have that sent B. There's also, what is it? The other one.
My Coinify is a place that recently I went to.
Yeah,
and it's
so that's what I was going to ask you. Which one do you prefer? Like Michael Middleton, which one have you done lately?
The one
that
that
you
I've
have
done recently, you know, is mycoinify.com, and they have it's good. They have know your customers, so you got to be prepared to do that. You have to get yourself a wallet, you know, and Centbee is a good one. I also had a bunch of my stuff on Exodus. The problem with Exodus now is BSV is you can't move it in and out. So those things are always changing. It becomes, it's always harder to go with the one that is trying to change the game for the better. And so, but there's a new wallet that Satoshi turned me on to. I can't remember the name of it. Let me get my phone. I can tell you what it is. Rock Wallet.
That's the one I was going to mention. I saw people in the comments mention that yesterday. Yes, Rock Wallet.
Rock Wallet is good, and so you can not only hold BSV there, but you can hold other cryptos as well, and that seems to be a solid. Again, it's you got your 12 word phrase, and you got your password and all that stuff, and it's all in your possession. You know, a sovereign. It's allowing you to be sovereign, and of course. The other thing I always like to tell everyone, in my opinion, again, I would like to say not a financial advice, but is I'm a believer in owning silver, and then I believe silver dimes are the best because it's a way to barter. And if you go back to the 30s, you know, after the stock market crash, and you know, people were jumping out of the high rises, people were buying the car the day the Edsel for a roll of quarters, a roll of dimes. I'm sorry, silver quarters, a roll of silver quarters for the Edsel. So I think silver has been manipulated through the comics, speaking of Jamie Dimon, and I think that's coming to an end.
I saw the front of an Edsel at a diner lately. Anyway.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was an Edsel, like the grill. You know how Edsel has that stereotypical long, narrow strip, and then it says Edsel.
Very cool. A lot of those older cars are amazing. They're just, in a way, the technology's gone forward. But you know, I saw some of the old cars where the spare tire in the back would go down and it would parallel park the car. You know, so it was really cool. Like, you know, a lot of the things that. So, all right, Max. Well, thank you so much for having me on and indulging me for almost 2 hours.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. I think I'm gonna read like maybe 2 or 3 questions before we wrap up. I just want to respect, you know, if anybody has some questions.
Questions here, let's answer them.
Yeah, and we, you know, guys, I just want to state this while we're here before we wrap things up. I should have done this earlier, so I apologize. Please give a follow over to our fellow brother Michael Middleton's X account. You know, help him build up his X. All right, formerly known as Twitter.
I'm going to start a new one. You know, actually. Because I don't do any of my own content, I never have, but I probably will. It's going to be In the Know, INTHEGNO.
Okay,
that'll be coming out soon.
But yeah, he can be followed at Middleton Mike 62, and like it says, he discovered Bitcoin in 2013, accumulated Satoshis in 2014, had life-changing NDE on 2420, like he shared on part of his journey. As Bitcoin implements Genesis upgrade. Now is this, you know, his second chance is BSV. He has a lot of great insight. By all means, watch the beginning of the show. Later, you know, this will be chopped up probably over the weekend, so you can watch it that way. But nonetheless, yeah, please give him a follow. We'll keep that up there while we're getting into some last bit of comments.
Okay.
And let's see what we have. So we have from River, what do you think will happen right away if Craig wins the case? Total meltdown. You want to give a quick answer on that one before we wrap it up?
That's a great question. Whew. If Craig wins the case,
It don't have to be quick. Anyway.
yeah, let me just think, because to me it doesn't. I honestly don't believe it matters whether Craig wins the case or not in the long run, because BSV has been saved out there and there's enough mining going on. But if he does win the case, then the narrative changes quicker and hyper Bitcoinization could happen at almost any point in time, where the mining will be so much more advantageous. And if you follow, what you've shown on that and a few others in the space, that mining is already becoming more profitable on BSV. So I think the hyper Bitcoinization is going to happen even if he does not win the case. But if he wins the case, like you say, like he says, Katie bar the door, anything could happen. And you could see a flippening very quickly, and BTC could lose its status completely if the judge rules that, that it's no longer can use the Bitcoin name. Of course, Craig offered them to keep that, but they said no, as far as I know.
Fair enough. I guess, are you cool with doing it like maybe 5-10 more minutes? I don't know if you are.
And if there's more questions, I can stay
Yeah,
up
let's
forever.
respect our. Well, I want to respect
Absolutely.
you guys. You guys have some great questions, so we're gonna do a little bit of extended. Okay. Hey, how about
No
this?
problem.
Just not financial advice, but some community advice. Please smash that like button. It does help the algorithm, right? We're not a sponsored channel or anything like that. 62 likes, 57 people watching. We had a great turnout tonight. I think we might have got over
nice.
80 people watching simultaneously. So for the size of this channel, like we're doing some good things. Thank you so much for that. All right, so check this out. Here's another one. And Mike Cornwall, I did see some of your questions in that regard. So and also we had some other ones from Calm Focus Truth 756. So about an hour ago. This is a good question. So this one right here, can you see that on your screen? You want to read that?
Yeah. Okay. So he's saying 26.9. I remember that. It came from Binance. Why would Craig White use Binance? That's a really good question. Now, I actually used Binance back in the day because Binance was the only place that I could actually convert BTC for BSV at the time. So is it that he has some stuff on Binance for some reason? Maybe he put some there, and maybe it's strategic for him, because if it's from Binance, how does anyone know who it is? He has every right to use whatever platform he wants. So maybe he used Binance and he doesn't want people to know that it's coming from him. He's very strategic, this man. So my guess would be it's a strategic move if he's coming from Binance, because then no one knows who it is.
Love that. Love the answer on it. Thank you. Here's another good one. These are great questions. Sorry if I didn't see them earlier, guys, but at least we're getting into them now. This one's from Elon Muff, the one and only. It looks like he's got a rock band right there called Elon Muff, but anyway, forget that. Do you think Craig Wright will dump and short BTC and fill up liquidity into BSV? I think we talked about that a little bit, but your thoughts again.
Yeah, but I'll answer it again. I don't think he will short BTC. My understanding from what he said is he wanted to not strategically, but to sell the BTC into the market and use it for good. In other words, he wanted to give it to charities and not just destroy the people who had invested in BTC. And I'll be honest, I was going to reach out to Craig because one of the things that I have done after my tragic accident, I went to AA quite a bit and actually gave speeches and seminars on the benefits of AA. So I was actually going to reach out to Craig Wright a while back, when I was still pretty brain injured and pretty sophomoric in my thinking about seeing if he wanted to help that, because AA is a nonprofit. So I was just thinking, if he wanted to assist in some way. That was my thought process. Probably wasn't a very good one, but I don't think he's going to dump. He has threatened to dump, and if he dumps, everything goes by an order book. So if you look at the order book, the buys and the sells, and I did a lot of that when I was doing, when I was looking, when I owned all the different things, I get pretty good at looking at order books. But order books can change in a heartbeat. If some whale comes in and starts throwing his weight around, and Craig obviously is a whale, if he could, he even said, and it's just like with stocks, any stock that you own, if you own a majority of the stock, who are you going to sell it to at that last price? So the last price in a stock is never the total value. People look at their portfolios and say, well, I got this much, so if I liquidated it all today, this is what I'd be worth. Yeah, well, go ahead and try and liquidate it and see what you get when you actually start dumping it into the market, especially if you're a big player and you own it, because you got to look at what the order book and who's buying it. And that's where I think BTC has got a real problem, because if it isn't for the fact that Tether and a few others are out there buying it, who's going to buy those, as Satoshi likes to say, who's going to buy those bags?
So basically, Craig Wright prepared himself for the future in regards to, like, Binance, for instance.
I think he specifically either had that Binance account. He's probably got accounts all over the place. I remember reading early on Craig Wright talking about his early days in Bitcoin, where he had like 20 different computers and was mining it himself, and how he did it, with, and of course it cost him his first marriage, because, he quit his job to focus on Bitcoin. And, what wife wants to hear that you quit your job for what, right? So, he talked about all this. He was very open about it, and it made a lot of sense to me. So he probably did have an account at Binance, and he probably was just an easy way. I mean, what's 26.9 Bitcoin to someone who's got 1,111,111 Bitcoin? It's nothing.
And that number in itself is unique. Let me see this real quick.
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
That number also equals very much, and shout out to Gavin about this, that is pretty much equal to what the judge wanted him to set aside based on the current price, and actually it was a little bit more in case the price went down.
Okay. I learned something new in that regard.
Yeah.
I do feel, I can't believe I didn't get this earlier.
Okay.
Tim Shea says MC equals Maximus Crypto. Earlier, I thought, I thought Colin Focus Truth was referring to Mike Cornwell, or maybe possibly you. And I was like, market cap. I'm like thinking weird. And I'm like, duh, Maximus Crypto. Hello.
Hello, you are the MC, so you should know it since you're MC.
I should know that. I remember that. It's just, I'm so used to Michael Cornwell. This guy, this is, Elon Musk is Michael Cornwell. So I'm so used to that. Like, like we do a text or something like that, people are like, hey, I got that from MC. And I'm thinking, okay, him, not me as in Maximus Crypto. But now on the show, if it's people saying on the show, I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I love double entendres. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. MC Max, yes. All right. Here's another good question. I think it's the same question. Hold on. So I was reading about a certain amount of BTC holds info for Coinbase. I think it's a different question. What happens if those dump? That's a different question.
Reading about a certain amount of BTC holds info for Coinbase. What does that mean? A BTC holds info for Coinbase? Like they're holding it? I'm not sure I understand the question. I was reading about a certain amount of BTC holds.
I think it's a typo. I think it's a typo too. Like he meant something, but it came across different.
We can try and figure it out. A certain amount of like they're. See, so if I'm going to make a guesstimate, like they're talking about, if I think what they're saying is they're holding BTC back, and what if they start dumping those, right? And they're absolutely right. And I do think that I have another one. This is perfect timing, because I think BlackRock owns a certain amount, and who's the guy that that's part of the coalition? Michael Saylor or whatever. He's got
Michael
a ton
Saylor,
of them too.
Yeah.
Who knows? He's talking about. I mean, I just saw him earlier today. He's going to give away 1,000 Bitcoin, and if you send whatever you send, they're going to send back double to you. Just join the party. Oh, come on. Like,
Oh,
send
that
you
thing that's like a scam or whatever it is. Those commercials. Yeah.
Nothing is for
No.
free, people. Like, so
Yeah.
what they're doing, and 100,000 Ethereum and whatever you choose to send. If you send 0.1 Ethereum, you get 0.2 back. If you send 100 Ethereum, you get 200 back. I mean, talk about a Ponzi scheme.
That's a
That's
Ponzi scheme in itself. Exactly. Yeah. They're
Exactly.
using AI. That's not really Michael Saylor for one. It's just
Oh,
AI
they
to
think
make it
so.
look like, yeah. You gotta watch
Okay,
out for the
all
one.
right.
So there's one that's Brad Garlinghouse. He readdressed it. He was like, "Hello, YouTube. Get with, like, what the hell? What's going on?" And then I
So
seen one
share
for
my screen
Solana.
real quick, if you would, Max.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say real quick. So Solana, there's a fake one on that one too. And then
Oh, is
also the
there?
one you just mentioned. Yeah, there's a fake one for Solana. It's Michael Saylor. Yeah, it's horrible. All
So
right.
the reason I want to show this, and if you can zoom in on it, see, so this is a recent thing. I think it was in January 2nd of
I can't
2024.
zoom in on it. Actually, you would have to
Okay,
do
well,
it
that's all right.
on your end. Well, you can
I'll
on the
just keep
bottom right where it says 25%. You can do that.
I can.
Yeah, see where it says on your screen, the little magnifying glass where it says 29%. You can
Oh, yeah,
zoom
yeah,
in
yeah.
more. Yeah.
All right. Okay, hold on.
Okay,
well,
that's not going to work right.
never mind,
Well,
let
you
me
know
just
what? We
read
can
it.
come out. How about this? I'll just come out of the frame. We'll take us out of the frame. Let's see if that works. Hold on a second.
Okay, good.
That's a little bit better.
All right, well, let me just read what matters. It says, this is BlackRock talking about Bitcoin and their investments. And it says, BlackRock remains actively engaged in researching and assessing potential opportunities in this sector. And I'm sorry, let me go back before that. In line with this commitment, we are closely monitoring the developments in the cryptocurrency space, including BSV or Bitcoin SV. While no definitive decisions have been made regarding any specific investment strategies. So basically what they're putting everyone on notice for is that BlackRock is going to determine what is and is not Bitcoin after it's determined by the courts. At least I think that's what it means. But they're letting everyone know that, you know, and so I think they're actually acquiring BSV. There's been some purchases of BSV, and I think Satoshi has, as well as Gavin, have documented that in their recent things. So BlackRock,
Sorry about
and
that.
then
I'm having difficulties.
I've heard other things that, and you know, I'm plugged in with a lot of different people that BlackRock is actually being taken over by white hats. And if that's the case, they're going to try to eliminate all the bad players, and there could be a good reset coming. So who knows what the truth is anymore? You just kind of got to live in the moment and see what happens.
Yeah, very true. Sorry about that. I was trying to get the thing back on the screen to show that. Man, that's tremendous. So where did you act? You know, how do you acquire this? Because I mean, a lot of times us as in like, you know, researchers and so on, we're always trying to find, you know, that's, in my opinion, that's some juicy info.
Well,
You know?
I've got a couple more that were all about, like Craig Wright being involved in the space in 07, 08 with BlackRock and a few others, because I just look and see what everyone else is doing, and then I copy what's good. And so, you know, Craig Wright was involved with a few other companies. Hold on, let me just see if I can find that real quick. If you can stop the share for me for just a second.
Yeah, no problem. I did figure out a way where you can zoom in even more. There's a thing on the bottom right of your screen to full screen. So I just noticed
Okay,
that.
good.
Yeah.
So, okay, you can come back to this now. So this is another
Michael, hold on just a second. Can we just at least give a shout out to the whole community? Come on, you guys. Michael Middleton going the extra mile, spending a little bit extra time. Why would he do that? Think about it, because he's passionate about what he has. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD under 10%. So if you appreciate the coverage, smash the like, share the content. Give Michael a follow, for crying out loud. He can be followed over at X at Middleton Mike 62. Sorry, that's the only one time the whole show I'll cut you off. And I remember somebody else saying, "Do not cut this guy off. Let him speak." And I was like, "I agree." So there you go.
Okay, so share this. Now, I got this got off of someone's side. I wish I could give him credit, but I can't remember who it is. So if you look at this, you see it's June 30th of 23. And the project titles were Spider, Redback, Triple S, Blacknet, and Blacknet again. And look who the author of all this is. It's Craig Wright. Okay. Now this is way back in 01, 02, and 04. So a lot of this had to do with the original Bitcoin. And what I'm going to do is look
Yeah,
here.
see if you can
The next
zoom in
one.
a little bit more about that. Actually,
All right, let's
you
see.
want to just test this real quick? Can you go back to the previous one?
Yeah.
All right. And
Let's
obviously,
see.
next time you come on the show, we'll have this all,
All right.
you
So
know,
let's see if I
done.
can see it.
Bottom
Okay,
right, see that little thing where, well, you could do that too, but you see also on the bottom right of the far right corner is a little arrow thing. Yeah, that one. Click that. Does that help at all? No,
it seems to.
but
Yeah,
that's
I think
fine.
you can
Okay,
see a lot better. Okay,
cool.
so what this shows is June, like, so these are the projects, and look at here, name of person giving approval, Craig Wright. Okay, well, this is way back, October 23rd of 2001. Okay, so now if we go to this next one, and let's see if I can, increase, I'm just going to read it. It is noted that Bitcoin is merely the ledger for the peer internet project started by Dr. Craig Wright in 1998 and registered as Spider/Redneck/Blacknet. Okay, now I mean we're going way back
Well,
here.
not redneck, redback, but that was funny.
Oh, is that what it says?
You know,
Okay,
that would
And
be
then-
something if it was a bunch of rednecks
yeah,
that
yeah.
came together, got it right. Anyway,
So I wish I could get you had me somehow do the thing, but it's not.
oh my bad. Hold on a second. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it off the full screen. Oh boy. You're gonna do it on the bottom right on your screen. So you know how
Yeah,
you
I
ever
see.
share? Yeah, you just click
Yeah,
on
it's
or
not.
hit
It's not.
F. It's either it might be F11. Try F11.
I'll try that.
It was
That seems to
F11.
work. Yeah,
Shout out
yeah.
to Edward Vinson for the F11.
Oh,
Everybody,
good for him. Yeah, I used to be
he's
good at all.
somewhere listening right now. Maybe I don't know. Shout out to Edward Vinson. Taught me a lot about F11. All right, there we go.
So here you go. This is the day it was created. This was say modified, right? So they want to come back here when it was modified and stuff. But this is more stuff. So I like this one too. So what this one shows is there's the ticker forks, which BCC went off and BSV, right? So Bitcoin BTC, according to the tickers, is the real Bitcoin. But over on the right, if you go with the protocol forks, BSV has remained true to the original protocol, and BTC went off to the right as I talked earlier, and then BCH went off to the left. But Bitcoin itself remains true to the original white paper, the original protocol. They've restored the opcodes. They've taken off the block size limits. It's the closest thing that anything has to the original Bitcoin, and I really like this. Let me see if I can.
Hey, there we go.
There we go. So
Look at you getting all used to this real quick. That's cool.
Anyway. Know. I used to be great at this stuff.
Right.
So August 2017 is when BTC, and SegWit took off this way. So then Bitcoin continued on, and right in here is when I was, really researching and learning about, and then right at this point is when I went I converted a lot of my BTC, but not nearly all of it, to BCH, and then from BCH right here, I converted that then to BSV. And I was always looking at the exchange rate to try and get the most favorable exchange rate, but sometimes I don't even worry anymore. Yeah, I just just get it, and then you guys got to pay the taxes, because whenever you're converting stuff, so my tax returns are a mess, and so that costs me a lot. So I can't tell you, I don't have a lot left because I've had to pay taxes and keep my company going, but I don't worry about that. The money is secondary to me. I do kind of follow Craig Wright in that. It's more about what Bitcoin can do.
Yeah, I mean, I love these visuals though.
I got paid 11 cents an hour in the firehouse, and to be honest, I don't think I ever received it. When I made it to the firehouse, the corruption in the prison system was so bad that I don't think I ever saw that payment of 11 cents an hour.
Well, you're more than good now with your history of the ones you invested in, to say the least.
I can't tell you how grateful I am to have had that experience and to have, to be blessed to be out here again and have my freedom. Until you've experienced the loss of your freedom, it's hard to know exactly what that means.
God, that is so powerful what you just said. When the person thinks about that last sentence, what you just said. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're
You know,
going
I
to.
I
Oh,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
sell. I spent 6 months in because COVID hit, and of course I was kind of anticipating COVID when I was initially sent down because I was familiar with the 1918 pandemic, and it had all the signs of being a repeat of that, and so I kind of told my family that there would probably be something, and of course my family just didn't believe it. But then 1 week after I was sentenced, the lockdowns began out here in the real world, and no one could leave their homes. And I wrote letters home, and I said, "Well, I said it looks like we're all incarcerated." I said the only difference is I have security guards that watch over me. So I was trying to be funny, but there was some truth to it.
Yeah. I'm gonna. Is there anything else you want to share on this particular one, or do you want to share something else? Okay, so I'm gonna pull this off for a second.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh,
Yeah, you can turn it.
actually, this is cool. I'm gonna share that in a bit. That magazine is really neat. Let's pull it up for a
Yeah,
second. That looks
that's
really
an
cool.
old one that I got from somewhere. That's an older one. What is it? January of 2013, I think, when it was one of the first Bitcoins. There's a gentleman that I met down in Acapulco. And by the way, I am going down to Acapulco from the 9th through the 19th to see what if I can meet people down there, because it was actually a very interesting, because I went down in 17 and 18, and there are a number of people, and they actually do a lot of things with health too. I'm very much into healing. I actually own a Tesla, one of the original Tesla healing machines, which I acquired from somebody when I was down in Acapulco in 2017.
Yeah, I remember that you sent me a DM in regards to going down to Acapulco. We're gonna read a couple more comments. Some great questions. I did start off this way, but you know what? I think that we're all getting kind of a feel for each other, which is cool. Here's
And
a
I
good
have
one from
one.
OG.
Yeah, go ahead with that
Sorry?
one. But then I got one more good one to show you. It says the Department of Justice opens investigation into Bitcoin Core and its ties to Epstein and Maxwell. That's a whole nother story. Go
Oh,
ahead.
Ghislaine. Yeah. Always
Yeah.
wondered. Yeah, Ghislaine. All right.
It always
OG
comes back.
Crypto. Yeah. OG Crypto. A question for Maximus and Michael. How long do you think this BTC halving will be a double top? I'll let you go first on that.
So I've looked a lot back into the halving, and I saw someone who did a really good thing, and they talk about the double tops, and they've happened every other time, and they think it's going to happen again. I think this is different, and the reason that I think it's different this time is that the trial is going to change everything. So a lot of times, in my opinion, the people who run the show, they want you to follow these patterns, and then so that more and more people follow this pattern of, well, it happened 4 years ago, then it happened in 2013, then 2017, then 2021, and here we come again. And so a lot of people buy into these patterns, and they think it's a foregone conclusion, and then guess what? The pattern's gone, and people put in all this, and they buy BTC at 43,000 or 38,000 or whatever it is, and then the pattern blows up, and they get left holding the bag. So I'm very nervous about pattern recognition and that kind of a thing, because I don't trust it. Because you don't know who's behind the scenes and what they're doing to create the pattern and benefit from the pattern.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And then it doesn't help when you hear comments in a live interview like what we shared earlier with Jamie Dimon. Yeah. That doesn't help at all.
So this is the one. It just came out on January 17th. This is literally just over 2 weeks ago, if you want to share this one.
Yeah. Hopefully that answers your question, OG Crypto.
I hope it did. I know it wasn't really a direct answer, and I apologize for that. But if I don't have a good answer,
he understands. He's a great guy. He gives everybody the benefit of the doubt. So
yeah.
All right. So you got this Department of Justice. Can you zoom on that one, or? I guess
yeah. So
okay.
I knew about this Epstein Island. I followed this just like I followed everything in 2017. I brought it to the attention of my employees and families back in the day, and I think there's a lot more that went on Epstein Island that they're even admitting at this point. And it's not surprising to me that the justice is going to look into Bitcoin Core and its alleged ties to Epstein and Maxwell. So they just announced this, I guess, what is that, January 17th? Interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna
There's a date
read
right
a
here.
little bit of that myself.
Yeah. So
yeah, a lot of people
and
from the community follow this. I mean, I think everybody follows it at this point.
yeah. And it says here, the bottom there, the Department of Justice encourages anyone with information about Bitcoin Core and its ties to Epstein and Maxwell to contact the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. So, when I know the wheels of justice grind slowly, but they do come at you, and a lot of people who, there's a poor guy who started Silk Road, and he's still in prison.
Yeah, I know about the case with him.
Yeah, and I met his mom down in Acapulco. I felt sorry for her. It's her son, but it's unfortunate. And I know he was young, but there was all kinds of sex trafficking and stuff that people were doing, and they thought it was anonymous, and they're all being rounded up now by the authorities.
Yeah, I remember when the whole thing with Silk Road was going on, and all that illegal trade, and making it so easy to acquire. Let's face it, all those illegal substances and so on. If I'm not mistaken, that was really heavy between 2010 to 2013. I actually heard about BTC back in 2010, unfortunately, and I was into another investment at the time, and I got burned with multi-level marketing, and I just didn't want to hear anybody give me another spiel, but it is what it is. But yeah, I remember the whole thing with the Silk Road thing. So interesting that, you actually got to speak to the guy's mom.
Yeah. She was down. It's interesting too. So down in 2017, there were, I would say, 300-400 people at the convention at Acapulco, and Ron Paul was there. Dr. No, who's a really great senator, and I met Ron Paul.
I like Ron Paul.
Yeah, I do too. And he was running for president, and he gave a speech down here in San Diego, and I had contributed. He had what's called a money bomb, one of the very first money bombs, where he raised a bunch of money from individuals, and I was one of them. And because I supported him, he met me. I have a picture of me and my wife and my son with Ron Paul. Right, he was so genuine. He met us backstage and talked to us for a good 5 or 10 minutes before he went out and addressed the crowd. And he's still around today with Sons of Liberty and all the things he's trying to do. And of course, his son Rand Paul is very active, pursuing liberty and things like that. So very
like Rand as well. Yeah, Ron Paul always kind of struck me as, if you had to label somebody a 21st century version of like a true statesman, it would be him, if you want to call it that. But anyway.
You know what his nickname was that they called him in Congress?
What's that?
It was Dr. No, because no matter what it was, if it was unconstitutional, he voted no. He was oftentimes the only person on the Senate floor that would vote no. So they just called him Dr. No, because if it didn't follow the Constitution, and of course he took Greenspan and many others to task, tried to audit the Fed for years. He's very, very patient. I mean, he's a doctor, by the way. He used to deliver babies back in the day. He was very, very.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, he was an MD. But then again, his son, the same situation.
Yep.
Kind of runs in their family. All right, let's see. What else we got real quick? What else we got? This is a good one for OG Crypto. Silver is amazing. I keep telling these guys, silver and gold, forget the toilet paper currency. Gonna go further down. Elon Musk states, like original block holds specific info for Coinbase. Maybe he was reading about it. Mark, who's a big, I believe, BSV proponent, you have to be KYC'd in order to withdraw 27 Bitcoin from Binance, though. So wouldn't they know it's Craig? That's a good point. What do you think?
Well, they might know it's Craig, but who else would? See, if he's just putting it and taking it out, sure, they would already know it's him, I would think. But the fact that he took it out and now he put it into the Genesis block, so what? I mean, he knows who he is, and he doesn't. Eventually, if it comes out in the court, but yeah, you know, I've been able to trade all of my stuff because I've always followed the KYC, even though it was difficult. Binance made it very difficult for me to, you know, if you didn't follow everything they said, you gave them the exact thing that they were looking for, they shut you down. And they shut me down for months. And I was like, what else do you want? I've given you everything you've asked for, all of my tax returns. Like, what else can I give you to open my account back up? So they're very serious with the KYC. And they should be.
Sorry, I didn't want to smash this, you know, make that crazy sound.
That's okay.
Yeah, I have little known fact. I always taught my kid, you know, I should say my kids, my students, especially the 5th and 6th graders. They would always take my recycling bin. Okay, it was not that big of a bin, and they would throw all these water bottles in it full size. You know, and I told them, I was like, all you got to do. This is how you do it. You take the cap off, smash it, and then I was like, we could fit like 100 in there instead of just 20.
Well, it's interesting. All that plastic is out in the ocean, and now that someone has made these machines that go out and start eating it and recycling all that plastic. Isn't that amazing now?
Yeah.
We've got so much plastic that we've dumped into
I know
ocean.
there's too much plastic, but I was looking at it from the perspective of not having the, you know, or custodian having to clean the room every hour. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a few more comments, and I'm going to wrap things up, I think, here in a little bit because we're approaching 2.5 hours. I mean, it is kind of starting to
marathon one, but that's all right.
Yeah. Let's see here. David B. The BlackRock memo info was in the initial SEC filing. Okay. What else we got?
What is he saying? The one I just showed. That memo. Specifically,
I don't know if that's what he's. I don't know if that's what he's referring to. The original what you had.
Memo info.
I can go further down.
Yeah, go see
when they amended their. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. When they amended their SEC filing, the info was removed. Oh wow! I wonder if he could elaborate more on that. That's interesting.
Here's a little bit more from David B. He says he read the whole application back in June. So I guess that would have been June, 2023. The whole application when they filed it is when, okay.
Okay. And then they removed something. It definitely will be something. Let's see what else he's got.
It's from Bits of Complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. The outcome of the trial is going to be a watershed one way or the other, but I don't think it's going to change the long-term perspective, but it's definitely going to change the short to intermediate term perspective.
Yes, we did see that. We talked about, well, not me and Michael, but yesterday I did cover that on yesterday's show.
Disappeared. And of course, you know, so Zuckerberg, you know, and then there's talking about, okay, so is Craig Wright and Zuckerberg, like, you know, going to team up or something? You know, speculations are wild, but Meta leaving is huge. You know, right on the doorstep of the trial. And is the speculation, are they mad that, you know, they didn't get consulted, like, or is this just another game that the people at the top are playing, you know, musical chairs to confuse everybody? Because, I mean, seriously, how many people in the world are really following this? Very few.
Very true. This, you know, I actually was thinking about this ironically last week. This is, I'm not stealing anybody's idea or whatever, but I literally thought this. Christopher Monteros. Does Craig, as in Craig Wright, have full-time bodyguards? Just scary considering what's at stake for bad actors. Yeah, I was thinking about this, Michael. I was like, come on, man. I mean, he has to be well protected because, I mean, if you are, you know, you got this big threat to the overall system. I mean, I did an LCX video last night talking about how I feel as though LCX is the biggest threat to Binance. But in reality, when we're talking about Craig Wright in itself, if he's the head honcho, he is the head honcho, and he's really, you know, Satoshi Nakamoto. Come on, haven't we learned anything from history about?
I can answer that on a spiritual level because, according to my understanding of the way, you know, the people who are at the top work, they have to do everything through lies, and they can't. That's why they have to show everything in codes, because they're actually telling you what's coming on. So they don't actually come at you directly. They do it indirectly. Of course, there's, you know, there's a certain body count that's following the Clintons and stuff, but I'm talking just in general, the conspirators or whatever who are following things, they can't directly go at somebody. And so, and you know, on a higher plane, whatever your destiny is, at Craig Wright, whatever, if it's his destiny to be, you know, meet an untimely death, it's going to happen. I don't think he's that worried about it. I think he's just going to do what's right and to the best of his ability. And you know, there was a guy by the name of Ryan X. Charles who did, and there's a series called the Theory of Bitcoin where he interviewed Craig Wright. I was just watching it again earlier today, and Ryan X. Charles actually did a segment years ago where he compared Greg Wright to Jesus for, you know, bringing the truth to people. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting analogy because, you know, if what Craig Wright is one man has done, it's obviously changed the world already because Bitcoin is everywhere. Where is it going to go from here? I think that depends on the people, as if they're willing to take what has been given to them and to implement it for everyone's betterment.
I get the whole thing of the Jesus narrative, I guess you could say. I mean, if it was my dad, he would say that's blasphemous, and I respect the memory of my dad, but I get it. You know, it's back to the saying, you know, Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Anybody who believeth in me shall not perish but have everlasting life. The Bitcoin white paper, to a sense, you know, this is the way, the truth, and the life, the new life, changing, you know, this crappy system that everyone has been part of for since the beginning of time, if you really think about it, you know.
Yeah, and of course,
is
Jesus also says the kingdom of heaven is within, and that's not a light thing. You need to go inside yourself, and find out who you are inside the body. You know, you don't, out here is just an illusion, and they now know that, you know, that everything is a matrix. You know, the movie The Matrix talks about it, and so
that's a great reference.
Again, reading Thinking in Destiny actually will show you. It's like a user's manual to the body, and it's a very difficult read. It's 1,000 pages, but the first chapter is the purpose and plan of the universe. But it goes into all sorts of. It takes forever to read it, but it's quite a expose on who we are in life and what we're here for.
Very cool stuff. All right, guys, we're gonna read just the last bit of comments, whatever it is, and that's it. If somebody else comes up with a great thing, it is what it is, you know what I mean? So we're gonna have to wrap it up here soon. February 5th is the next date, OG, because
Yep.
OG was asking this trial ending actually may still have time. I know, OG, your comment earlier was you didn't have any BSV, you felt bad. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like FOMO, whatever you want to call it. It's okay, OG, you know, like everybody has an entry point at some time. And that's the power of the DCA.
I think,
yeah.
To answer the question, the trial could go on for a couple months before. I mean, it could go very short. We just don't know if Craig Wright goes in there and he has a plan to, you know, to, let's say, sign in front of everybody. I just don't know what he's planning. You know, anything could happen at trial. But as it stands now, and if you look at the trial scenario of, you know, they're going to be going after Craig Wright, then they're going to have you know, there's a whole schedule. And right now it's like 60 days or something of, you know, trials can really take a long time. But then they can also blow up. I mean, settlement can happen at any time, or something could happen to blow it out of the water. Trials are unpredictable.
Yeah, very true. All right, let's see what else here. Bits complicated. By the way, guys, any newcomers, you know, Bits, maybe you came and watched the show before. Just want to state this, all right? Thank you for being here, and I'd like to welcome you. So, again, if you were here before and I didn't see your comment on a different show, my apologies, but thank you. He says, Justice Miller has mentioned that the case would be wrapped up within 2 months or a bit more. Also, should Craig pass, he has a kill switch.
Yeah, I've heard him talk about that. And you know, I don't know enough about what, you know, Craig has done to, you know, obviously he's thought about everything. If you actually look at, you know, I have a copy of the Bitcoin white paper where he did a bunch of doodling all over it, like, you know, and it looks like a bunch of like Greek writing and you know, algorithms and stuff. the man's mind is, it's hard to even know where he goes sometimes inside his brain. So what he may or may not have put inside of Bitcoin, and when Jamie Dimon says, well, he could have a kill switch. Well, yeah, maybe he does, but I wouldn't. The man has done enough to create this for good. I can't imagine he put a kill switch, and I don't even think it's up to him. I think it's up to greater powers than any human being. Actually, I don't think any of us possess the key to what's going to happen. We just do our best while we're down here.
Yeah. All right, let's read just a couple more. Hold on, what do we have here? BCL says, I've heard they are all on the same side. BTC was the test. BSV was the plan all along. All right.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and it might be true if the white hats are in control. That and if you look at some of the things I showed earlier, where it was like 1998, and Craig Wright, that's why when he got interviewed, said it wasn't just him. There might have been others that planned it way ahead of Craig Wright, and Craig Wright was just a conscious or an unconscious actor in the play, just like George Washington and all those Masons that founded a nation, Abraham Lincoln, all the same type of stuff.
All right. I'll leave this to you. I've answered this before, but I actually would like, if you're willing to share it, you might not be willing to share it. How many BSV at minimum? And again, it's not financial advice ever. It's just maybe he's asking.
Yeah.
Should people try to acquire?
It all depends on what you have. It all depends on, if you don't have any money, the answer is none. You need food and water to survive. You need a roof over your head. And then after that, you need shelter and whatever. But then, and then more important than BSV, in my opinion, is to have some physical silver because it's in your possession, and let's go down to Venezuela not too long ago. There were people there that, if they had silver, they were eating and others weren't, as they hyperinflated away their money system, which they're known to do. So BSV is kind of a luxury, in my opinion, and you should get as many as you can. I think having one Bitcoin is, that's 100 million Satoshis. So that puts you in the game, and that you're going to be ahead of most of humanity that, don't have any. So I think you get as many as you can comfortably afford because, if you have to sell it to eat, what good is that?
Yeah, very, very true. Let's just get through a few more. I know it's kind of keep saying that, but you guys got some good questions tonight, and we appreciate that. Yeah. What was this one? I think it was from River or somebody like that. Maybe it was from Blackwood. Hold on a second. Let's see where it's from. I don't think anybody has the answer to this. When is the trial over for Craig Wright? Do you feel as though it's going to be over on a certain date, or nobody really knows that, right?
No, I don't think there's any way of knowing. There's just trials are too fluid, and who knows what Craig Wright has planned. He kind of has all the cards, in my opinion. Of course, he's in a system that he has to respect, which he does. But who knows what he's got planned to, does he come in the very first day and offer to sign right in front of the judge with the 26.9 if the judge ordered him to have the money? And so who knows? It's a wild card.
You know what? I discovered something on my screen. There's a few things I actually wanted to ask you. Listen, Michael, okay?
Yeah.
I want to respect your time. I really, really do. But at the same time, we got people kind of enthusiastic.
I'm good.
Are you cool with going maybe like a little bit longer?
Whatever you want. I'm totally
not too long. Okay. Because there's a couple things I wanted to mention earlier, and then I just recognized I don't know why. We're talking about all this other stuff. So I want to recognize this. This is funny. I'm gonna make it kind of funny. We got to have a little fun, guys. So talk about flip of the switch hunt. Wow. Well, here's the thing. All right. I retweeted this earlier. Let's have a little fun. Okay. So let's share this real quick. You guys will love this. Okay. Basically, this is from Satoshi. Okay. Satoshi. Have you seen this?
Yeah,
By any
I
chance?
saw. Yeah, I watched all his stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he says, who did this? This was from, I don't know, I guess originally from Ryoshi or somebody like that. Who did this? Wait for it. If you guys haven't seen this,
It's fun. Yeah, go ahead, play it.
it's good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and full screen this. Hold on a second. Should be full screen. Oh, I just need to take us out, right? Hold on a second. I'll make this a different way of showing it. Full screen layout. There we go.
You have my
There we
share
go. I got
turned off.
Yeah, there's nothing
go
there.
ahead. All right,
Okay.
good. Go ahead.
Let me take out some of these logos just to make it a little bit better. And here we go. Check this out, guys. You're gonna really enjoy this. Here we go.
Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world. But two conditions are necessary. The first one is that we act all as stakeholders of larger communities, that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility. And second, that we collaborate.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the only thing that's probably gonna suck is because it played the Star Wars theme song. Stupid YouTube is gonna have a fit, be like, "Oh, copyright infringement." You know, you're not gonna get monetized because of that, Maximus Crypto. But you know, since it's on Twitter, Elon Musk doesn't care. He's just like, whatever, do what you want.
It's funny.
I don't really care.
I saw a lot of people get shut down that were covering, Pizzagate and all the things. You know, they were just completely wiped off of YouTube. And so, yeah, you have to be mindful, because if you want to get your word out, it's very hard when you're being monitored and shut down.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, you will on no BSV and you will be happy. You will eat lots of bugs. The guten Tag, the Liechtenstein exchange. Anyway,
And that's what's funny. Like, what people don't understand with bugs have so many microparasites in them. And when they get into your system, those parasites are almost impossible to kill. So
this even fuels the debate about nothing. So, the parasites will get into your body, and the food that's in your stomach, they will eat the food, and then you will have no nourishment in your body. Be nothing.
And you like it. You'll owe nothing and like it.
Yes, you'll like it. Anyway. That guy. Anyway. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Arkun. I always wonder why the John Titor talked about BTC promoters being killed. Now I know why. If Craig wins, do you follow that? Maybe you don't.
Yeah, so I think he's talking about back in the day. I really don't know who John Titor is, but it's interesting. Like, anyone who is promoting Bitcoin and is what he's talking about. And so I'll tell you what's interesting. So, and this is off topic, and I apologize to him, but
okay.
When I was down in Acapulco, we had our own little enclave there, and there was one of the guys who was a Bitcoiner. Well, he was apparently a drug dealer, and so he was dealing drugs, and the cartel was down there. And so he met his demise, and that sent a shockwave through the community down there at Acapulco, because if you get on the wrong side of someone, you get on their territory, and you're down in Mexico, you're dealing drugs, as a citizen of another country, it's not going to be good for you. Like, other than that,
right.
I mean, I had no problem down in Mexico. I mean, I was all over the place and going to the different stores, and I enjoyed myself, but I didn't get on the wrong side of the powers that be.
Right.
So I think what he's referring to there is, people who were promoting Bitcoin back in the day, and there were a number of them that were promoting BTC, and one of them was selling it, I guess, individually, and the feds came and arrested him. I remember that. some guy and his son, and they were selling it at coffee houses, and they came and arrested him. So and he served a prison term too.
¿Cómo se dice BSV en español, Michael Middleton?
So you know, remember the
Spot.
movie, Chad? Where are your papers, Chad? Where are your papers?
Well, como se dice is like, how do you say? So how do you say BSV in Espanol? Not that I'm fluent in Spanish. I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll tell you what,
you're in Mexico.
Well, in my history, back in the 80s, I used to go down into Mexico with my boss, and I took a couple years of Spanish, and I was the one who was most fluid. So what we were doing is it was in San Quintin, Mexico, and we were bringing water, and then we built bathrooms for the villagers. The government had placed an Indian tribe there, and so I became the interpreter, way back in the early 80s for when my Spanish was pretty good. So I have a fairly good understanding of basic Spanish.
There you go.
But it's a little rusty.
All right. All right. We're at the part now of the reaction towards, Mr. Klaus Schwab's the World Economic Forum. So let's look at this. River, this is all brain, bubblegum, enjoy the shoe. Everybody's laughing, freaking awesome. Rue
Nice.
Black. Hey, shout out to brother Rue. Give him a follow or at Black Rue Investing. Give him a follow. Thank you for being here, Rue. He enjoyed that. All you guys enjoyed it. So that's good stuff. We're glad that
you stayed with us, man. Tim's been here the whole time. Good for you, Tim.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. I would highlight your comment, Blue Mars, but just in case YouTube throws a hissy fit about it, I guess it's possible. All right, let's see what else is on the screen. If they keep talking, I'm not leaving. GS. You guys need to go on a Lazy Shaman show, right? Because we're continuing it. Yeah, I did reach out to Shaman Says, and I might join in on him sometime, possibly. Which I guess would be on Friday. So that's a possibility.
There's a gentleman by the name of Sadhguru, who I follow quite a bit. I love to meditate and watch these guys. I've been following those for years. In Autobiography of a Yogi and all those. I very much enjoy my personal time. I'm an introvert by nature. I like to be alone and meditate, and that's why for years I followed all this stuff. In my man cave, as for 2017, I was at work sometime, but I would say 90% of the time I was in my man cave watching videos and investing in this stuff.
Heck yeah.
So, and playing golf, of course.
Absolutely. I've never played 18 holes of golf. It's something I've always wanted to go do. I just never had the chance to do it. But I used to go to the PGA Tour, Phoenix Open here in Phoenix. I went to Tiger Woods last time that he was at the Phoenix Open before he basically boycotted Phoenix. I don't know if you remember that whole thing where the guy threw an orange at him. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I was so upset about that. I was like, "You idiot! God, he will never come back." And then finally he came back. I didn't get to see that, but yeah. Anyway,
so for the golfers out here, I have to tell a quick golf story.
Sure.
Because I was watching Tiger Woods out at Torrey Pines, and he was a par 5, and he had hit 2 golf shots, and he was off to the left, just short of the bunker, and he was short-sighted, which means he had to hit the ball over a trap way high in the air and drop it right next to the pin on a very fast green sloping away. And he was in a matted lie down in the mud, and I was standing 2 feet away from him. So I saw him take out a wedge, which is an open face club, and he turned it even more, and he took this full practice swing like a driver. I couldn't believe it. And so fortunately, I was like 2 feet away from him. He takes his full swing, and I mean, the ball went straight up in the air, like, I don't know, 100 feet, 150. I've never seen anything go higher. And I just said, "Oh my God." And I looked at Tiger, he looked at me and he winked, and the ball dropped right next to the pin and rolled about 8 feet past. I can't even remember if he made the putt.
That's amazing, because I do know what a wedge is, and I only know this because of Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2007 video game where you get to look at all that stuff. Anyway, that's how I got to learn all that stuff.
I never saw anything, and in the same one round, he was teeing off with like a 2-iron or something, and he hit the ball, and it hit there were wires, like electrical wires, and he hit the wire, and it sent a shock wave through, and then of course he got to re-tee. but it was right above my head, and you just heard this boing,
That's like something
It's
like
just
out
a-
of a Hollywood movie when you think about that, like hitting electricity wire and stuff like that. Anyway,
Oh yeah,
it's
like
cool.
it
That's
just
awesome. Yeah.
Tiger was so fun to watch. I watched him, of course I watched Jack Nicklaus. I watched him win the 1986 Open live. So I've been into golf for a long time.
Very cool. I think we're getting towards the bottom. Let's read this
Okay.
from Bits Complicated. Before Bitcoin had a price, it was used to trace the Russian business network. Interesting.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either. I'm glad you guys are having a good laugh. Elon Musk wants the world to know that he is not a Mexican American. He is a Muffican American. Interesting.
Nice.
Anyway, I have shared that before. Anyway. A couple more comments. Craig's mom worked for IBM. His grandfather, Ronald Andrew Linman, or I'm not pronouncing that right, worked in the Philippines under General. Do you know it? Go ahead.
Lyman. His name's Lyman.
Lyman. Okay. Worked in the Philippines under General Douglas MacArthur in signals intelligence. Craig's uncle, Donald, was a high-ranking RAF pilot or something, or part of the RAF.
Wow.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Not saying he was a pilot, but you know what I mean. Wow. All right, let's see here. Blue Mars, please keep talking about BSV and how rich we about to become. Yeah, no problem, man. We don't do these shows where it's just BSV only. This is a real treat for you guys. Yesterday I was mentioning that it was pretty much going to be the BSV show today. We obviously talk about other coins and so on. Even Michael is into some other altcoins and whatnot. But yeah, thank you for that comment. Let's read this from Elon Musk. IBM is the foundation of the quantum financial system. I would have to agree with that. Bits Complicated. The Russian business network at the time was one of the largest criminal enterprises in Zived. All right. Royal Australian Airfare. My bad. That's why you have one more Aeon. That makes sense because obviously where he's from, he's an Aussie. So okay. Very cool stuff. Michael, let's give you the last word.
I'm just going to say this. At the end of the first chapter of Thinking in Destiny, which is the introduction to it, he leaves off with this. There's only two things that matter: what to do and what not to do. So we should try to do what's right and not do what's wrong. Even though when we do what's wrong, we can at least raise a conscious objection in our mind. Like, I'm going to eat this sugar. I know sugar is not good for me, but I need to have this sugar. So I'm going to raise this conscious objection in my mind, and I'm going to eat the sugar. Right. Anyway, so let's just try and, be kind to each other and do what's right. And if we all do that, the world will be a better place.
I actually tell people that all the time on the show. So you don't want to know something? This is your first time on here, but I gel well with you, man. I can't wait to have you back on again. I'm just gonna say that it's been an awesome show.
I could feel that just watching you. And then when I reached out to you and I threw some breadcrumbs out that I figured would spark this, and so I'm really glad that you reached back to me, and we were able to take care of this.
It's like when a person, as the saying goes, it's like you meet somebody. I mean, this is kind of like a virtual meeting, if you will, and you try to see, get a feel of how the person is. Like, I don't feel uncomfortable around you. I very much look forward to having you again. And guys, give him a follow. Yeah, Michael Middleton, man, what a great show it's been. I really mean that. This is probably one of the best shows we've had, and I can't thank you enough. And guys, round of applause for Michael. And we'll just read this last bit before we close it out. Look at this. Cool show. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. Smash a like on your way out. Give Michael a follow. One last time, I'll say it's at Middleton Mike 62 over on X, formerly known as Twitter. And with that said, you guys know how it goes. Know what you hold, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. But if anything, BSV is your second chance at the real Bitcoin. So with that said, on behalf of myself, our guest, Michael Middleton, you all have a great night. We'll be back with you guys possibly on Saturday, but most likely Monday. Monday through Thursday is always the lineup for DUYOR with Max, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a great one and be safe this weekend.
Namaste.
Right back at you, brother. All right. Stick around for just a second. I'm going to end the stream real quick. I need to ask you something. Okay.
Sure.